What is going on, Eagles family? I'm wondering myself if this thing's lagging, but it looks like it may be clear for once. So we're clear for takeoff. Today I brought in a special guest, a fellow writer from 4th and John. I really respect his opinion on things. Got to meet him a lot through the draft. We got to talk about a lot of things. So I thought today we could bring on Mr. Mal Davis. You can follow him down here at the bottom at Love for the Game Mal. But yeah, I'll give you a chance to introduce yourself here, Mal.
Hey, Jimmy, man, appreciate it. Yeah, my name is Mal. Like you said, writer for 4th and John. Huge Eagle fan, born and raised in this. So, I'm not new to this at all. Everybody on my father's side of the family is from Philly. And so, got a chance to see Randall way back when at the vet. And, just been in this game for a long time. And just really excited to talk with you today about the Eagles and just about the schedule, about the roster. Any and every opportunity I get to talk about the Eagles is a good day for me, man.
See, and that's exactly why I brought you on today, because that's the kind of person I'm looking for. We're all bleeding green out here, and obviously it's a little bit different this offseason. We're usually hungry at this point, but right now it's a little different. We don't know what's coming our way, but, as Fletch said, we're all going to take it as it comes and just act as if it is going to happen. So I brought you in here today because you got that same excitement, and any chance you can get and any chance I can get to bring someone on to talk about the Birds, we're going to take. So that as we speak about the schedule you mentioned, man, that was released the other day, and I will say that it's a tough one. But I'm confident in this team when healthy, and I would like to hear a little bit of your thoughts about this schedule.
Like you said, it's tough, man. I think as always, you really want to start the season off strong. And with our roster getting healthy, it's going to be important that we hit the ground running. As you look at like the back half of the schedule, starting with Seattle and kind of going through the Packers, New Orleans, Cowboys, and then with the home game in Washington, it gets a little bit more difficult. That San Fran, Pittsburgh, Baltimore run there through like the beginning and middle of October is a little bit tough. What I do like is that we get a chance to jump things off going to Washington. So we get to face a rival. I've always believed that, the Eagles can play Washington tough. You can never tell with divisional games. But I do think we'll hit the ground running. I'm not too worried about those first 3 games, to be honest. Los Angeles is a good team, but when you come to the link, man, you got to prepare to get stomped out. The fans hopefully will be able to be in the building and acting rowdy. Even if we aren't, they'll be able to hear us screaming from our houses, man, because we'll be so excited for the season. And so, yeah, I'm excited. I think that this is a team that it has playoff aspirations. And, if we stay healthy, when we stay healthy, definitely when Carson stays healthy, we have a roster that's built to go to the Super Bowl. That can sound like hyperbole to some folks outside of this city, but, I feel as though this team, the way it's constructed and the schedule, the way it's built out right now, if we can start off, 3-1, 4-0, potentially through those first 4 games, there's a really strong opportunity for us to kind of keep running all the way through right there to week 17 versus Washington.
Love it, man. And I agree. It's going to be a tough road, but you talked about the beginning of that schedule there. And if we can hit the ground running there, we go on the road, big on the road victory, that would be a nice one. And then you take on the Rams, a little bit overrated, but still a decent team. The Bengals, they'll still be with their rookie quarterback, talented, but we'll see what he's got. I think with the talent we've added on defense, we could definitely get to that young man and change the game for him.
Yes, sir.
But I usually hate these things. But if you had to predict, what would you say our record would? Looking at on paper right now, I know we haven't even seen these kids play. But looking at things, if you had to pick a record, what would you say?
When I first saw it, I felt like a modest 10-6 was a realistic aspiration. I think that, again, it's so hard to predict. Running through that Pittsburgh, San Fran, Baltimore sort of run there through the beginning of October is really going to determine to me what kind of team this is. That San Fran game is a playoff game. Baltimore is going to show up difficult to play, even though we're at home, like Lamar Jackson and company, and that defense are always going to show up tough. And so, I'll go 10-6, 11-5, probably super optimistic. I think that there are going to be some tough games. The NFC East has been just musical chairs every single year for who wins that thing anyway. So, it's always competitive within our division. Our division is tough. I don't think that these teams get the credit that they deserve for how hard they play each other. I think we talk a lot about like the NFC West. We talk a lot about the AFC North as far as like being some of the tougher divisions of football. Listen, Cowboys bring it every year. The Giants, up until a few years ago, were playoff caliber team. The Eagles in and out every single year for the past decade or so have been playoff caliber. And so, I'm going to go ahead and say 10-6. And I'm hoping that we strive for greatness and are able to surpass that. But I feel like a 10-6 record potentially puts us in pole position for the NFC East, and then also puts us in a good position for at least a game of home field advantage in the playoffs.
Definitely, man. I like it. And, you talk about, going 10-6 and the struggle of the NFC East. That's something every year we deal with. And,
yes, sir.
Being on this earth for over 30 years, we know we've seen the battles every single year. And I think it's downplayed every single season. It's always a tough battle. So we're going to see it again this year. We got some new head coaches in the division. It's going to be exciting. But we added ourselves a lot of talent. And that to me is really going to push this team further, because we already knew where we stood with what we had. We lost a couple key pieces, but we added to places where we needed. We talked about speed. We talked about youth. That's exactly what we did. Now, one of the things I was very intrigued and I wanted to bring you on for, we got a Facebook user here saying 12-4.
Yes, sir.
Very
optimistic.
I dig it, man. I'm all about winning 10, 12, whatever it takes, man, to win that NFC East and go on and win. One team's going to get that bye in the conference now. That's crazy. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But hopefully we keep the Cowboys from making the playoffs. But, talking about the new additions and one thing that intrigued me about you was that you were not very happy about the first pick that we had the day that we made the pick for Mr. Jalen Reagor. So I thought we could definitely have a conversation about that, because after you watch the tape, I really thought it was cool, to see someone just, instead of being mad that they didn't get it right or this isn't the guy they wanted, how people act, you went ahead and watched the tape, did some studying, and then completely changed the game. And I really like what you had to say. So I'd love to hear your thoughts on Jalen Reagor now.
Yeah, shout out to you, Mally, Chris Mally, and also Gail for the video that you all did. That kind of got me on the pathway initially, and believing in your ability to kind of look at the tape. I have to look at the tape myself. I'm a firm believer in you can't lie from that eye in the sky, right? Like you can't hide from that all 22 view. And so I really took an opportunity to kind of look at Reagor from 2017 all the way through 2019 as I pulled together the article that I posted on 4th and John. And it really changed my mind. I think that I haven't made any sort of mystery or like hidden secret that I was standing real hard for Justin Jefferson. He was somebody that I thought could be an excellent fit for the Eagles. And I think the whole, he can only play in the slot was overblown. The year before, in 2018, he was dominating outside, right? He was putting up the work and doing the thing that he needed to do to get drafted where he got drafted. And so it took me some time, but, I'm a firm believer in, you also have to admit when you're wrong. And I was wrong about Reagor. What he brings to the table is a diverse and dynamic player, skill position player that can return punts, return kicks a little bit at TCU, can take, jet sweeps, can take tosses, traditional handoffs from the shotgun, can run from the slot, can play Z receiver. I don't necessarily really see him as an X receiver in the NFL. I don't think that he has the body type for it. Hopefully J-Jaw can step up and potentially become an X for us in the future, or we identify somebody down the road that can take that Alshon spot for us. But the fact that he can do so many dynamic things, I just had dreams of him and Miles Sanders flanking Carson in the backfield when he's running wheel routes and benches out of the backfield against linebackers, and just killing these dudes in space. And so, this is really on Doug Peterson. This is less about Jalen Reagor and more about Doug Peterson and how creative he gets. We also have Jalen Hurts, who is going to need some packages to get him on the field early. And so this just gives the Eagles offensive staff just so many opportunities to get really creative, create packages for these guys to get the ball in their hands. I'm hoping to see Jalen Reagor touching the rock 10 times a game through special teams, through handoffs, traditional handoffs, and also through pass receptions. And, if you're getting him involved and invested early and giving him a chance to just kind of get ramped up and going, I think the sky's the limit. When you have a guy like Miles that you have Sanders already, Booby Sanders, and get him spinning in the backfield, right? Boston Scott is another guy that's really dynamic and showed at the back half of the season what he's capable of. And so when you add a guy like Reagor into that dynamic, you get Deshaun Jackson back at least healthy for one game, right, versus Washington again. So we know we'll get one game from D-Jack, and then we'll kind of go from there, right, game by game. But you add that dynamic. You add Hightower from Boise State. The Eagles really got faster. And that was imperative as the NFL shifts. And, people are kind of trying to pattern themselves after Kansas City's offense to put as many skill position players in space that can just move. And that when you give them the ball, they have that run after catch ability. You already have like an Alshon and the Ertz that can move the chains, Dallas Goedert that can move the chains and work the seams. You need guys that can run that drag and take it to the house. You need a guy on a broken screenplay that can juke somebody in space and take it to the house. And that's definitely what Jalen Reagor brings to the table.
Love it, man. And exactly like you said, you don't bring him in to be the X receiver. He's not coming in here to, like, oh my God, we're all relying. He's the number one pick. Here it is. I think that's why he was the perfect fit, because he gets to come in, play your Z, gets to move around in motion. He gets to get those handoffs. He gets to be used in different areas. So he's going to be utilized. He doesn't necessarily have to be the X. And that's exactly what J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was drafted for last year, to take over that role of Alshon. Now, and I'm still praying, man. Yep. And we talked about last year. I couldn't stop talking about how much I hated Mike Groh and Carson Walsh, and like how much they were really hurting this team. And as the year went on and as it ended, they got fired. We saw that how much they really were hindering this team. You bring in smart minds like Rich Scangarello, Marty Morningweg. They're not the offensive coordinator or anything. They're just more bright minds to help this offense, like you alluded to earlier. Finding ways to use someone like Jalen Reagor, and it shouldn't be hard, because the kid can get it done in all facets of the game, and that's what's so intriguing about him. And the things where he lacks, the blocking, the concentration drops, I think when he's not the focal point, and with great quarterback play and great pieces around him, like you mentioned, a great running game, more elusive players that can't just focus on him, it's gonna really open up this offense. And with Deshaun Jackson back, trading for Marquise Goodwin, and the other players we're going to talk about, my God. So, so I think that it was a great pick as well. Now, another pick where I don't think it was just you nor I that was very confused or a little bit angry about, but the next pick in the draft, now in hindsight, we've had some time to look at it, break it down, look at things. But before I say anything, I would really like to gauge your thoughts on Mr. Jalen Hurts, the second round pick from the Philadelphia Eagles.
So I was on a live stream that 4th and John was doing. I think it was E, Prime, me, Gail, quite a few people were on there, and I will forever have burned in my mind E-Rock. People thinking that he was lagging out because the man was just looking at the screen, just dumbfounded. And I think he kind of at that moment spoke for a whole city that just wasn't expecting that pick, especially with dudes like Logan Wilson still on the board. Mims was still on the board. Like, you had guys that could have went at 53. That would have been almost instantaneous game changers for us. Whereas, Jalen Hurts is a projection. We don't know what he'll be. When the pick happened, I was dumbfounded. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't expecting it. In the chat, people were speculating that was the next pick, and people have a better connection than I do. So they knew well before I did what was happening. And so, I couldn't believe it. My wife was kind of like, "Mile, it'll be okay. Like, just relax. You didn't like the Reagor pick either. So, just come around to Hurts." And in a vacuum, like, I like Jalen Hurts. And Chris Malley and I talked about this a lot. But Hurts is a player that I really wanted to see go somewhere where he had a chance to be a starter within a year or two. Whereas with the Eagles, like, that's a doom scenario if he's starting here, because that means something happened to Carson Wentz. And I'm a big Carson Wentz fan. I've been a fan of Carson Wentz for a really long time. When you look at him on film in that All-22 again, like, you see some places where he still needs to grow and develop. But as an NFL quarterback, I have a big belief in him and his ability to lead us to where we're trying to go. And it's a shame that he got injured in that year. He could have potentially been an MVP. But thankfully, we had a guy like Nick Foles that could clean it up. And so I think that ultimately that's what the Eagles were looking at, right? Is like, you need someone that can come in and spot duty just in case something happens to Carson Wentz and be able to get us where we're trying to go. I'm also a realist, and I realize that in reality, there's a good chance that he doesn't beat Nate Sudfeld out in year one. And so the doom scenario, again, is seeing a guy that you drafted at 53 overall in street clothes because he's not dressing, and because he hasn't picked up the playbook in the way that he needs to. And this, to me, is sort of reminiscent of the lockout year with Danny Watkins, right, where he wasn't able to get into camp. He wasn't able to really pick the things up the way he needed to. And that ultimately led to like a downward trajectory in his career because he just couldn't hit the ground running the way he needed to. And Jalen Hurts, I'm sorry, as a quarterback prospect, has a lot to learn about the game. When he went against some really high level competition like LSU in the college football playoffs, they boxed them in, and they have a tremendous amount of athletes, many of whom got drafted, and they were able to really put him in bad positions consistently where he was turning the ball over, where he was trying to run around in the backfield, trying to make plays with his legs, ultimately getting drugged down and hit a lot. And this is the NFL where everybody's a tremendous athlete. The 320-pound, snacks guys like that are still tremendous athletes. And so, being a superior athlete would only get you but so far. And so he still has to really learn how to play quarterback in the NFL, kind of learn how to play quarterback, period, work on those pre-snap recognitions, just put the work in. And so I'm here for the pick. Like I said, I like Jalen Hurts. Thankfully, a lot of time has elapsed between that pick and today where I can be a little bit more objective in my analysis of his game. If you would have asked me this that day or 2 days later or a week later, I would have probably had a lot different things to say. But he's an Eagle. He's here. I'm only going to congratulate that young brother and, wish him the best of luck. I'm really hoping that nothing happens to Carson where we have to make a choice to insert him into the lineup 2 years from now. But again, Carson's contract is flexible in 2 years. After the 2022 season, the Eagles have choices that they can make. And so, I think that Jalen Hurts is really a future projection for Howie and for the offensive staff, where maybe get him some runs going early, maybe put him in position where he could run the ball a little bit in his first year to kind of get him inserted in the game and just get him loose. But I don't see him being an impact player in year one.
Yeah, and I felt the same way that you did when it first happened. Now, obviously, I was excited about the first pick, so I was thinking about people as soon as the Hurts pick was made. I was like, oh, people are going to burn the city down. People are going to be furious because they're still pissed. But I was definitely pissed about that pick because there was a lot of guys that we had talked about. I was actually on the stream with you. Literally, we talked about a bunch of really good players. And then, like you had mentioned, someone actually told us like 10 minutes before the pick, and we're like, whatever. Like, that's, sure. And then, like, they're like, no, that is the pick. And like you said, E-Rock was in shot. Everybody else is punching shit, freaking out. So the feeling was alive and well inside me. But, after I settled down a little bit, looked at things, in hindsight, like you mentioned, he is a Philadelphia Eagle. Therefore, I wish the best for most of these kids anyway. But, he's an Eagle. So I'm going to love him, and I'm going to have his back, and I'm going to hope that we don't need to use him. And if we can find ways to use him, I'm all for it. I know that there's the Taysom Hill packages. There's all kinds of talk. But also, as you alluded to, we can't do anything right now. So we have no idea. They really don't know. They have, I'm sure, plenty of thoughts and ideas, but they're not going to find out until they put this kid to work, really get to find out what he can do, So I'm excited about the pick, and I hope it, in a weird way, you're like, I hope it works out. But what is working out, So I hope that Carson Wentz is the Super Bowl champion. I hope this kid, a team, I don't want anyone to get hurt, but hopefully a team needs a quarterback. We can trade him away maybe one day and he gets a chance to start somewhere, because I also am a huge Carson Wentz stan, and I hope that he leads us to a bunch of Super Bowls for the next 15 years, So let's hope that this turns around in the end. But yeah, it was definitely a shocker for all of us. But I agree that, he's an Eagle now. So let's all just hope that whatever happens, it results in us getting another damn trophy.
Yeah, but, at the end, man, it's Jalen Hurts. Just welcome to the family, baby. Welcome here, welcome to Philly. Philly fans, open your hearts and your minds to this dude because he's a good guy. And in the end of the day, he's a person that's going to give us everything that he has. I think that we need to kind of pump the brakes on the Taysom Hill packages because he wasn't cross training, right? So like he's not a guy that went to the combine and to be a running back or a wideout and like do some of those things. He's going to have to learn that. He has the physical capabilities, and I think we'll see like 6'1", 222, something like that, 6'2", 225, somewhere in that area. So like the dude absolutely has the physical body type to be able to produce in that regard. But to expect him to be running slants and quick outs and drag routes like Taysom Hill does. It took Taysom Hill years to even, get to that point where he overcame his learning curve to be able to
kind of kill him across the middle, man.
Nah, brother. Could you imagine, man? Somebody catches him, Bobby Wagner catches this man over the middle. Oh my gosh. That would, I think a whole city's heart just stops beating for a moment when you see this guy get demolished in a way like that. And so, plus Taysom Hill, if I'm not mistaken, he's 29 or 30 years old. And so, it took him a long time to get to where he is. Jalen Hurts is here to be a quarterback. Howie and the rest of the scouting group and everyone that's talked about Jalen Hurts has called him a quarterback. And so, I think that like we can get really excited about what he could do as an addition to a quarterback if nothing happens to Carson. But he's here to be a quarterback, which means that he has a lot to learn, and he has a really steep hill to climb to get to the point where even we're trading him away, because in the best case scenario, we're trading him for a pick similar to where we drafted him. In the worst case, we're kind of eating it like what happened with the Arizona Cardinals and Josh Rosen, right? Like they drafted him in the first round and had to trade him for a second. And so there's even the opportunity where we may not even be able to flip him with something for like a fourth. And something cost is a real thing. It happened. We made the selection. So, welcome to the city, Jalen. We're really excited to have you here.
Yeah. And I think, also just adding to your point, I think people seem to forget you need to have a backup quarterback. And if Nate Sudfeld wants to go elsewhere, which he has stated, we need to have one. So you don't want to have to use them, but in best case scenario, if you have someone that can come in and win. So yeah, all for it. Welcome to the city, young man. And I hope he does great. And I think, kind of what happened after picking him and the Hurt, everybody's freaking out about Reagor. Now it's Hurts. I think everyone lost track of, the next pick. And I think people are really sleeping on Davion Taylor. And I would love to get your thoughts on him because I've been talking this kid up as much as I can because he's phenomenal. So I'd love to get your thoughts on this young man, our third round pick.
Yeah, so I've done quite a few things for Fourth and Joint around Davion. The first, I wrote an article. I jumped right into his Colorado tape and got a chance to watch him in his last year at Colorado and really dug into his background as a person and as a player because he was somebody when the Eagles drafted him. Again, the first three picks of this draft, I was like, what is going on? I knew who he was, but I was like, there are other players on the board. And we skip on somebody in the second round that could have potentially been an impact player for us to take a project guy in Davion Taylor. But that was me just not really using my talent evaluation mind. That was more so using my heart. And so when I got a chance to really dive into his tape and see him play, and what he was able to produce in such a short time at Colorado was more of a situational player as a junior. And then his senior year came out and, I think he 91% of his snaps, if I'm not mistaken. And so Gail and I talked about him also in a video not too long ago. Love Davion. His instincts as a tackler are excellent. You can't teach speed, right? Like you could teach technique. He's somebody that's going to have to learn how to stack and shed and really key into his responsibilities. His pre-snap recognition isn't all that great. So he isn't a person that is able to diagnose quickly. But when you put him in a position where he can attack downhill, where he can see and just go and get it, he's destroying stuff. He's a heat-seeking missile that is just going to jack dudes up, especially on special teams early. And that excites the heck out of me because you need guys like that. And something you see him jumping around on film, his passion for this game is infectious. And I think overall, when you look at the whole collective group, and we'll get into more of the draft picks that fit the similar profile. But one, they love football. Two, they love their family and they love, the people around them. And three, they have a high level of passion for the game, right? And they show that on the field and for intelligence. I think all of the players that they drafted are very intelligent people. And so when you start adding in that football IQ aspect and you're giving these positional coaches some clay to mold and create some monsters, Davion for me is right at the top.
Definitely. Ken Visual has got his work cut out for him. But, he's got that raw talent and you can't teach speed. You can't teach that power he's got. And I think, he's really going to come in and he's not going to produce on defense necessarily right away, but on special teams, like you said, he's going to have that. And if you're versatile, you're winning yourself a job. And I really think I felt the same way when we drafted him. I was like, wait, why? Why Davion Taylor in the first round, And I was thinking with my head, I wanted my guys to be picked. So then
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? Let me watch a little more tape. And then as I did, I was like, okay, let me pump the brakes. And then the next day before I went on, I said, I think we all overlooked this kid. Let's get excited. And then let's have, we'll get into the next pick, but we needed to have a good day. And you talked about it. All of the picks we made are all, in my mind, weird, either like picks like, but they could turn out to be a steal at that pick, or they already are, in my mind, a steal. So it's like they're all guys that love the game. You saw the list of how he was like, do they love football? Are they healthy? So it's like we want to make, and are they fast? And obviously the offensive linemen aren't, and the defensive linemen aren't the fastest guys, but we added speed where it mattered. And we went into this draft wanting wide receivers, linebackers. We got a lot of those. And this guy, he could, in year 2, he could be the starting, one of our starting linebackers, and he could be a Pro Bowl caliber guy. I mean, because you talked about it, the speed, that just plowing people over, man. I mean, he's phenomenal. So I'm very, very excited about that kid. But, we talked about the beginning of day 3, I was like, okay, we overlooked him, but we need to have a good first pick of the day. Yeah. My God, this could be possibly, and every time I say this almost so, because it's like, this guy could be my favorite, but this guy for the defense. Because he reminds us of someone. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on Clemson safety, Wallace.
So listen, so I was excited about Davion after a while, right? Because I felt like after day 2 with taking Hurts, like we had to come out with a potential impact player. And even though Davion is a project, he's somebody, like you said, has like Pro Bowl upside. Kayvon freaking Wallace, let's go. Right. And so this guy right here, I've spent so much time watching and standing for post draft, and somebody that for me, I'm so excited to just see play in that Eagles green. And he provides so much versatility, similar to a Malcolm Jenkins. Right. And like, I'm not going to speak down on Malcolm because that's my dude. And, what he provided for us is going to be really hard for us to replace. But when you watch Kayvon Wallace at Clemson, tied for all-time games played, was a captain his senior year. And then when you watch him on the field, he's just a dude that produces. He played some single high safety, not as much. Most of his time was spent in the box, either as a strong safety or as a dime linebacker. And then a lot of time was spent at slot corner. And so you see the versatility. He ran like in the 4.5s at the 40, did very, very well in the broad jump, did very, very well at his vert as well. And so you see the explosion. My real issue with him was like his short area quickness. He wasn't like the fastest guy. Had a lot of issues with Justin Jefferson in the championship game. But then I'm like, hey, man, Justin Jefferson is going to give people issues for the next 10 to 12 years. So, Kayvon isn't alone in that regard. But, he's somebody much like Davion that when they key in, they make tackles and they make nice form tackles. He's somebody that you don't see getting eluded a lot. And, there was a tackle that he had versus A.J. Dillon from BC where he's coming downhill one-on-one versus A.J. Dillon and just eats A.J. Dillon up. And it's like, A.J. Dillon has 40-something pounds on this man. And, to see him with that aggressiveness and that understanding and just how excited he was to be an Eagle. He had an Eagles flag standing out on the block, had his flag hanging. I'm like, welcome to the gang. You already know how that's hitting. So, that type of stuff just gets me excited. And he's a smart football player. Somebody that, his teammates speak very highly of. He was a workout warrior, workout All-American his senior year as well. So just all the intangible skills that you look for from a prospect. Shocked that he fell to the 4th round. There was a lot of talk on Twitter and just kind of in general about the safeties falling in the draft period, which kind of pushed down his value. But he's somebody for me that also has Pro Bowl upside and can be somebody that when we're looking 3-4 years down the road, when we're counting, say, okay, Reagor's going crazy, Davion's going crazy, Kayvon's going crazy. Like how we really hit a home run with this draft, whereas initially we were kind of like, oh, these picks, I don't really know. I think that collectively as just a whole Eagles nation, when Kayvon came off the board, we were like, damn, okay, Howie, like we starting to see what you're doing here. Like I'm back on board, Howie. I was ready to jump off, but I'm jumping back on now. Like let's keep the ball rolling in the right direction. So yeah, Kayvon is somebody. I'm gonna stop now, but I could talk about Kayvon for the next 2 or 3 days, man. He's just somebody that gets me so passionate because again, similar to Davion, he shows a lot of passion playing the game. And he's somebody that's really excited to strap that on and get between those white lines and just make plays.
Definitely. And, you had alluded to the fact that, he reminds you of Malcolm Jenkins. And that was one of the things that, we lost Malcolm Jenkins in free agency. That was huge. Well, we got rid of him. That's wild. But when someone plays 99% of your defensive snaps, it's going to be hard to replace. We moved Jalen Mills back. We thought, and I've been talking for years that he should be used in that role anyway. So I think that's a great move. But you bring in someone like Will Parks in free agency, I think another great move where this guy is going to be used in the same aspect. But then you see us go ahead and draft someone in that same mold. So they're looking for that same kind of guy. You obviously see that's what they're trying to do. But Davion Wallace, oh my God, like watching his tape, you mentioned he struggled with someone like Justin Jefferson. Yeah, a lot of people are going to. But as a safety, to see him go up against someone like that, as a receiver, to have the courage to even do that, it's awesome. And it shows you what kind of talent and how much his coaches trusted him. So then, and obviously you hear people talk about, Brian Dawkins' son was his roommate and he went to Clemson, and Dawkins doesn't want the comparison. And obviously we're just looking for the next great safety because we've been waiting years. And for this kid to fall in the 4th round, I don't understand it, because I truly thought that he was going to be at least maybe a 2nd, but a 3rd rounder. But the ball in the 4th, I'm all for it, man. So I think we got ourselves a steal, and we could talk about him for and that's a great thing. Most of these, I could literally make videos about every single one of them, So that's what's great. Like, they all make me excited because, like you said, they're all excited, and they're excited to be Eagles. We're all following them on Twitter, doing whatever we can to. And these guys are pumped, man. So it's once football comes back, man, I truly can't wait. And, now the next pick, not necessarily a pretty pick, but I don't think people understand that, Jack Driscoll is somebody that, he's a versatile lineman. That's what we're looking for. We're always looking for that. And, obviously we don't know if Jason Peters is going to come back. We don't know if Dillard's going to actually be able to step in and play that role. So, I think bringing someone like Jack Driscoll from Auburn in is a pretty good pick. And, we talked about he's versatile. So that's what the Eagles are usually looking for. Probably be a tackle, but, if you needed to come in and help at guard, that'd be awesome. So intrigued to hear what you've got to say about Jack.
So I kind of disagree around Jack being a tackle, due mostly to his shorter kind of arms. I think that he'd be much better kicking inside, was even cross-training at center before the draft to learn how to snap the ball. And I think that really helped him just kind of in general because, I like the long arm tackles to keep those pass rushers at bay. It's a really important trait to have. Not as important whenever you kick inside, because a lot of those nose tackles, when you're looking at somebody inside playing that 3 technique, that 0 technique, that nose, that one shade, something like that, a lot of those guys aren't really long arm dudes. So, you don't necessarily need as much of that leverage inside. And so I can definitely see Driscoll as someone that kicks inside to guard and just has a lot of positional flexibility. I mean, in reality, he's somebody that could potentially play all 5 offensive positions on the offensive line. And so, how are you mad at somebody at that point where, you can get that kind of flexibility? I was much higher on his teammate Prince, who we'll talk about a little bit later. He was somebody that I was just in love with before this season. And, injuries and just inconsistencies pushed him way, way, way down in the draft. But he's somebody I think that once we really coach him up, once Stoutland gets his hands on that guy, he's somebody for the future that can really just be a player for us. But with Driscoll, I just love the positional flexibility. And again, you touched on it, and something that we see just overall, especially with the defensive players and the skill position players, is flexibility is key. Your ability to play and perform at different positions is instrumental in your ability to ultimately stick in the NFL. And so for Jack, if he was just coming in projected as like a backup right tackle, I think that he could have a pretty good career as a backup, as a swing tackle potentially. But because he can potentially kick inside and really give us more of that flexibility and versatility, I'm more on board with him. Got a chance to look through some of his tape at Auburn, got a chance to kind of watch him versus some of the more phenomenal pass rushers in the SEC. And you see him struggle a little bit. He's not the fastest guy. And again, those shorter arms are going to be a little bit more difficult for him to battle with some of the more phenomenal pass rushers in the NFL, because those guys do have those longer arms and have those quick first steps and, have the ability to rip and shed and just kind of get to the quarterback in a number of ways. When you're playing inside that phone booth, man, you can just beat folks up. And, I feel like Jack Driscoll is the guy that's ready to just beat people in the head and get after them. He's one of those old school football players. And I love old school football players for that interior offensive line for sure.
Definitely. And I agree with you. Like I said, he's one of those guys that's versatile, but
Yeah.
the only place you're going to see him really playing tackle is probably in practice, and that's predominantly a right tackle, as you said. I definitely could never see him going out as a left tackle with those short arms. But you also mentioned him working on. I read that article. It's pretty cool that he was saying, I figured I'd take this time to learn a new trait, so he started learning how to snap the ball a little better, and that's awesome, dude. If you're going to make yourself even more versatile than you already were, dude, you're winning yourself a job. And you talked about his toughness, just that attitude, man, and I really think that, he's going to be a great pick. And watching his tape along with the teammate we're going to get to, it was really fun to watch. And I think them having that bond, being able to grow together could be very intriguing to watch, because some of our guys are getting older. So see if they stick around and, want to take over this line.
And I mean, our offensive line is definitely so cold up, baby. The offensive line is definitely getting older. When you're looking at Brooks, I believe he's 31. When you're looking at right tackle, Lane Johnson's turning 30. Kelsey's already in his early 30s and retired from arm wrestling and was contemplating retiring from the NFL. And so we absolutely have to get younger along the offensive line. It's something that's imperative. And so for me, Driscoll, again, is somebody that could come in, doesn't have a ton of pressure on him to perform immediately, so he can learn from some of the best offensive linemen. I mean, to be honest, Kelsey's going to the Hall of Fame. Lane Johnson has a damn good chance himself if he could put together a few more good years in the NFL. And is an all-pro caliber, right tackle. And so Brandon Brooks is one of the best right guards in the NFL. He's one of the best in the game, what he does. And so when you get a chance to kind of sit in film room and meeting rooms with guys like that are knowing where they are in their career, trying to download this information to you. And Driscoll's hungry, man. You could tell he's hungry just by the fact he went and started learning how to snap the ball, right? That kind of mentality, that kind of approach to the game. I just love it. That just shows the passion that you have. And so I have very little, and then you put him with Stoutland, and Stoutland's one of the best to do it. And so, there are so many positive things working in his favor that I really do feel as though he can pan out for us. And at the very worst be, a rotational supplemental kind of starter for us down the road.
Yep. And that's the great thing. He's versatile. And if he's versatile at, like you said, all 5 positions, maybe we don't want to see him too much at tackle, but just having that versatility even in practice, that, goes a long way. And people don't look into that too much, where it's like, hey, even if you're a guy that can help him practice in multiple ways, that goes a long way. So, even if he ends up being that guy, that's still something we need. And with the new CBA, you need to have that additional lineman now on game day. So 9 active linemen. So he could be somebody that's definitely there, because he can back you up in multiple spots. So I like that. Right. And then, after that, and some people are like, Jack Driscoll, but it's like everybody wants a pretty pick, but being on the 4th and John podcast, we talked about this. We needed offensive line depth, so we had talked about, are we going to double dip? And then we didn't double dip. We're like, okay, we're getting a linebacker, now safety. Now we got an offensive, boom, double dip, and they go ahead and grab John Hightower.
Hey, yeah.
Now, this got us all.
Let's go.
Yeah, yes, and I'm going to be real with you. Another, it sounds like cliche, but I'm not just saying it, another steal. At pick 168, we're talking a 6'2", 190. What did he run, like a 4.4, 240, something like that? I mean, the kid's blazing fast, and he's 6'2". I know he's got some stiff hips. He's got a couple things they talk about he's got to work on. He made a funny post about, I can't go get it, and then makes this amazing catch. He can get it. He's amazing. Got a lot to work on, but I think he's going to be huge, and I would love to hear your thoughts on John Hightower.
Yeah, man, like you said, ran a 4.4 340 unofficially, 38.5-inch vertical for a guy that's 6'1". So, he's able to really put it together in that regard. I like Hightower. He's just another one of those guys that adds an element of speed to this offense that we need. And where Reagor was really strong as a punt returner in his career at TCU, Hightower was really strong as a kick returner at Boise State. And so at the very least, you have to be able to, when you're getting drafted in the 5th round, right, on a team that's already kind of stacked at the position, you have to be able to have that versatility. And I think we could have called this the versatility podcast, right? Because I feel like all of these guys that we're talking about have that additional element of they can do something else. But when you're talking about, late in the season, I was watching week 17 today and just looking at the receivers that were out there. Some of these dudes, I mean, we probably have never heard of before in week 17, right? And so, when you have somebody like John Hightower that can produce for you late in the season when maybe a Djax goes down or maybe a Reagor is struggling, or, if JJ Arcega-Whiteside is still not really showing the potential that we need from him, you still have a guy like Hightower that can jump right in and just hit the ground running, almost literally, because this guy is lightning quick. For me, I love the pick. He really tore up his competition at Boise State. You saw him struggle against some of the better teams, but then he was able to find other ways to produce. So when he wasn't, seeing the rock a lot, he struggled versus Florida State. But I was also really surprised at how Boise State used him versus Florida State. Like, he was rotating in and out a lot more than I thought he would. And same thing with how Reagor was used at TCU his last year. He just didn't use him well. And so when you see that lack of like offensive philosophy to get your best player and your best sort of skill player the ball consistently, it's going to hurt them and it's going to hurt your team. And so I don't think that'll be an issue with the Eagles. Peterson is always looking to get guys the rock. And, Zach Ertz has really dominated receptions and dominated targets for us because we didn't have consistent guys outside. We didn't have consistent guys that could catch the rock. We were relying on Aguilar, who is better known for his drops in the city than he is known for his catches. And so, I wish Aguilar the best out in Las Vegas, but in reality, he wasn't somebody that we felt when the ball was headed in his direction was going to make a play. And so the Eagles, I think, and just the drop, the key drops that he had, and just the fact that he's better known again for a meme of dropping and stuff than he is for making big time plays. And so, no knock on him, but, I'm excited about Hightower. You saw some concentration drops, but again, when you're seeing the ball 80, 100 times in a season, you're going to drop some of them. It's a given, right? Like, as a receiver, you're not going to catch every single pass thrown to you. Even the best don't catch everything. Not so he comes in again. Yeah, unless you D-Hop, Mike Thomas, guys like that with just the vice grip hands on them that just tend to do catch everything.
Unreal.
But also, you don't see them running the same type of routes that Hightower is running. And Hightower also can take handoffs like Reagor. It just can produce in a bunch of different ways. And so I love that. Yep. And I love the fact that when you bring in a Hightower, you bring in a Reagor, you keep defenses on their heels because they don't know what's happening. He comes across the formation in a jet sweep, or he runs a bubble screen, or, he's running an orbit screen. You have to respect it because if that ball gets in his hands, he's gone.
Definitely. And that's the thing. You can use him almost the same way, but he's bigger. And if you could bulk him out, because it's like we got speed across the board. I mean, he can turn into whatever receiver he wants, but it's like if he can turn into the X receiver with that kind of speed,
possible.
Like, oh my God. And, you talked about some of the guys that we had last year. And, I had done a wide receiver breakdown video last week. And it's like, it was funny just going over some of the names because people are like, what? You're like, oh, Marcus Green, Deontay, Burnett, Rob Davis, they're like, what? And then you brought Shelton Gibson back. It's like, who are these people? But it's like, that's how grim things were for us, and Greg Ward was somebody I really liked last year.
I love Greg Ward.
And Matt Collins, for some reason, was kept over him. Don't know why. I was pissed. But thankfully, he came back and helped us and showed what he had. But he's going to be fighting for a job now. But the good thing is he's really well in the slot. And that's something these guys are going to need to work on. So he has the advantage at this point until these guys can actually get on the field. But it's going to be a competition for once,
That wide receiver competition, man, in training camp. And, here's hoping we have an open training camp and we are able to kind of overcome this pandemic and get to that point. But that's one of the competitions, wide receiver and linebacker. Wide receiver, linebacker, defensive back are like the three that I'm watching the closest because I'm like, okay, especially at linebacker, there are a lot of young, unproven, but fast and talented dudes there. And so the same with wide receiver, like outside of Alshon, Marquise Goodwin, and Djax, the rest are kind of question marks. Greg Ward, like you said, played really well in the slot and definitely has the inside advantage to maintain that. But he'll have Jalen Reagor nipping at his heels. He'll have Hightower nipping at his heels. He'll have players that are going to push him for reps and for snaps. And overall, steel sharpens steel. You want to have the best players pushing each other. And, I think that's how a team like the Patriots stays successful because they always have guys, that next man up mentality, because that guy behind you is really talented. And may not be well known or maybe a washout from another team that's getting his abilities rehab in that system. But when you have really good guys pushing you every single day, you can only get better or you get replaced. Like it's one or the other. And so, Greg Ward proved that he was talented and now let's see if he could take it to the next level.
Yep. And that's one of the things I mentioned, he's got to take it to another level, because if he's going to get beat out by Mac Hollins last year, it's not going to, go well for him this year. But, you talk about it, steel sharpened and steel. We traded right around this same time in the draft for another wide receiver. We moved back 20 spots and added a really good receiver when he's healthy. I understand he's dealt with, some health issues, but it's another speedster. But the thing the Eagles did was, you don't just add a speedster like Deshaun Jackson last year and go, oh, now we got our speedster. Because then he gets hurt. Yeah. You only have him for one game, and then you're bringing back Shelton Gibson. I'll stress that again. So, you bring in a lot, and you make them compete. You make them push each other, and then you're going to get the best out of them. So I am really excited, and I thought the addition of Marquise Goodwin was great. One of the viewers, who just gave a shout out, wrote a great piece about Marquise Goodwin, and I'm really pulling for the kid. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that trade, though.
Yeah, so shout outs to Soko for that awesome article that he wrote that was just posted today on 4th and John, man. He did his thing, really going over who Marquise Goodwin is as a person. I think a lot of times, and Gail pushes me in this regard, we talk a lot about who a player is on the field, and I'm real good with like the X's and O's and the mechanical aspect, but like, what's their motivation to be great, right? And like, that's the real question, because, we get a chance to see them as this finished product. It's something the Scouting Academy really pushed me to think about differently in regards to evaluating players and prospects. It's like we get the chance to see who they are here, but like, what are the qualitative changes that they're making to their game? What are the things that motivate them as people to help them get better and help them get to the point where they master their craft? And so Marquise Goodwin for me is a guy that really excites me. When we traded for him, I was kind of, those last 2 years in San Francisco, he really struggled. And then Deebo Samuels came in there and just kind of took the whole show over for San Francisco. And so, he was really that focal point of that offense. And so he, Goodwin, because of injuries, kind of ended up falling to the wayside. Had a strong year in 2017, which really was the last year that he was kind of productive with 56 receptions, 962 yards, average 17.2 yards per catch. And so, like you said, I love how you phrased it not too long ago, with a Deshaun Jackson who has really struggled with injuries at this point in his career. It's that next man up mentality. And Shelton Gibson had a good career at West Virginia, but has never shown that he could be that guy in the NFL. Marquise Goodwin has shown it. The dude has legitimate track speed, and has been able to Olympic track speed, right? And so again, you can't teach speed, but the best ability is also availability, and so he has to stay healthy. And in a situation where God forbid, but Djax and Goodwin go down, you still have a Reagor, you still have a Hightower, you still have guys behind them that can push for reps and push for snaps. But then it gets kind of ugly because we're relying on rookies to come into the NFL and produce right away. And I think that we've all been spoiled seeing some of these Odell Beckham kind of seasons where these rookies are coming in their first year, Mike Evans, and really just dominating the NFL. We have to remember that wide receiver is one of the most difficult positions to come into the NFL and really just produce in the beginning. That given a person 3 years really came from quarterback and wide receiver, right? Like, we've gotten spoiled within this past, 5 to 10 years of seeing guys come in as rookies and just ball out automatically. That's just not how it's done. And so, you really have to be patient. That's why I'm still holding out hope for J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. When he talked about the fact that he had to learn so many different positions, and when coming into a game, he just didn't know where he was going to play. I think that was to his detriment. We always want to talk about cross-training guys and giving them opportunities to play different positions. I'm really hoping for a guy like Kayvon Wallace, for a guy like Davion Taylor, for a guy like Jalen Reagor, that they're focusing on one specific position to learn and master, and then after that, getting an opportunity to cross-train and do other things. And so, I'm really excited. Appreciate that, Facebook user. Thank you for tuning in. But I'm excited about Marquise, man. I want to see what he can do in this offense. I know Doug Peterson saw how Kansas City was able to win the championship last year and how quickly they were able to put points on the board. And like, that showed out definitely in that 49er Super Bowl, right? Like, they were out of that game. And then all of a sudden, bomb, big play, game over, confetti falling, they're the champions. And so, this is a different defense will always win championships, but offense really can change the tide of a game when the defense gets tired. And so the Eagles and Howie did an excellent job of stockpiling talent, whether they were veterans or rookies, that can really do damage after the catch, push the ball downfield, and it just opens up everything else.
Definitely. And you know, you said about receivers taking a few years. When I started this group, the year 2017,
Okay.
people wanted to chop my head off. All I asked was that they gave Nelson Aguilar a chance. It was his third year.
Yep.
And I stress that usually in your third year is when you're going to see a receiver reach his potential, because
Yep.
it's a really hard position. It's the position I played, and it's
Me
literally
too.
and I'm not going to sit here and say that other positions aren't really hard to learn, but it does take time, and you see it. And you said, we got spoiled a little bit, and I think people now want to see it like, all right, let's go. And, Nelson did have a great year that year, but after that, he fell off. So you got to see whatever his issues were. But,
Right.
I'm with you 100% on that. But, someone like Goodwin, I think, not being the number one and not being relied upon. You talked about him being pushed out by – also Bourne and Sanders were there, not just, their first draft pick, Deebo Samuel. He was amazing. I really liked the kid, but I think that, injuries definitely didn't help, but he still got that speed. He still got the talent. And, with him being behind Jackson, Reagor there, it's just imagine them on the field at the same time. Dear God. Like, that's all I'm thinking. Like, I just want to go buy Madden so I can put them all on the same team.
Man.
Like,
I downloaded the roster for Madden 20.
See, I need to.
Just because I wanted to see what it looked like. I forget if it was Mally or Soko. One of them downloaded it and posted on Twitter like, man, you got to get your hands on this roster. And so I went, I think that night, I told my wife, like, listen, I'm about to play a little Madden. I'm going to switch it up a little bit from 2K. I'm going to jump on the Madden. But yeah, and, who do you double team, right? And so I think about the running game and how dynamic our running game is going to be now, because you can't stack the box versus Miles Sanders. And so, you still have Boston Scott. You still have to be determined if we bring in a Carlos Hyde or, another veteran back. I like the question that you had out earlier today around like who we prefer to see added. And so there's still options out there, right? Like there's still players that we can add into the mix that will be dynamic in the running back position that can also just make us right. Devontae Freeman, LaShawn McCoy. I'm more on the lines of Carlos or Devontae, really probably Devontae. But, it just opens up everything. Who do you double team? If you leave a single high safety, man, I feel sorry for you, dog. Like, you're going to have to really play some off-man coverage. So that just opens up everything. The short passing game, that means Ertz and Goddard get to go crazy. That means Alshon doesn't have to deal with the same double team and shadows over the top and bump and run coverage. And so if you miss on any of these guys, if you miss on any of these guys, they're out. And, Carson, people have a lot of hate for him about the fact that, yeah, absolutely, Soko. But people have a lot of hate for Carson in the deep ball. But who the hell was he throwing to, right? Like, who was he throwing it deep to? Aguilar, so he can drop it, right? Exactly. And so, when you have guys that are proven deep threats that have done it in the NFL, like D Jackson and Marquise Goodwin, and then you have guys that you can project into that role, like a Reagor, man, Carson Wentz is about to go crazy. I have Carson Wentz in a keeper league in fantasy football, and come on, man, I'm ready. Let's do this thing. Let's get it done. I have the utmost faith in Carson. And I do believe he'll have a healthy season, a Pro Bowl caliber season. They just released the Vegas odds. I think he was number 8 for the MVP trophy behind a bunch of really good guys. I see him finishing top 3 with an offense like this. If these guys stay healthy, if this defense can figure out how to become more cohesive and fill in the gaps that are left and those linebackers step up, he's going to have a heck of a season for us. And, it takes that 10-6 season and puts us closer probably to like a 12-4 record.
Yeah, and that's, I think people seem to forget because of the last couple of years with the injuries all over the place, whether it actually be Carson Wentz injury or, obviously last year he stayed healthy until the cheap shot. But, in 2017, he was having an MVP caliber season and he was destroying. We talk about him running out of, the Eagles ran out of fireworks against the Broncos. That was the week the NFL told us, every other team, was telling us, this is where you're going to find out. You're going against Chris Harris, Aqib Talib, you're going to learn. Well, they learned when we put up over 50 points and whoop that ass. And then you have someone like Nick Foles come in and win the Super Bowl. But it's like we talked about, at the beginning of that season that Nick Foles would be the perfect backup. People were pissed at me for that. I just felt that, it was a perfect offense for someone like Carson. But if you had someone like Nick who knew it, it'd be good. We won a Super Bowl with that. If you put
Right.
Carson Wentz back there, and then you put the weapons we have now, and you talked about it, if you finally add speed, you open this damn offense up. You take off the top.
Absolutely.
You're opening up in the middle, and someone like Jalen Reagor can work over the top in the middle.
Yeah.
He can work on all three levels. Hightower could be going deep. Goodwin could be going deep. Jackson. Then you have Jeffrey, Goddard, Ertz going across. I mean, our backs can catch, Sanders and Scott.
Scott, yeah.
Insane. And then you talked about maybe adding a free agent back. There's some tough guys out there that can catch, like Devontae Freeman.
Yeah. Oh,
I also like someone like a Buck Allen because he can actually pass protect too. Isaiah Crowell is a name someone brought up, but I don't like pass protection too much. That's the thing. I'd like to see us bring in a pass protecting back. It's something someone brought up to me on Twitter earlier, and I said to them, if you'll notice some of the names that's on my list, that's where I was kind of headed. You got to have that. So I'm all for adding a free agent in a couple of areas, that we talked about competition. So, but I think we're on the right road here. Someone said you just got to add the pieces. I think we added the pieces. It's just we got to wait to see them on the field. We're just talking as if it's happening. All right, we're trying to get it. But I thought, then they restructured Goodwin, so that was even, not only do you trade 20 places back, and then you look at who that pick was at 210. I believe that was Prince. So I'm okay with the pick, and I'm more than happy to restructure someone for $1.35 million. A great deal. And, he has $1 million worth that he can get in incentives, cheap for a very good player. So Olympic speed, as you alluded to. So I'm pretty pumped about that. And then with the next pick after the trades, because that was when things were getting chaotic, man. We made 3 different trades with the Bears, the Dolphins, the Cowboys. Everybody was pissed off. But Howie was working his magic on that back-to-back. And, sure enough, he ends up with some great picks. One of the guys that we actually talked about on 4th of John was Shaun Bradley, a linebacker that we were really intrigued by. So to see another guy that we liked and a linebacker that's a little more polished. We love Davion Taylor, definitely love the skill set. But when it comes to an inside linebacker, somebody that could actually maybe even play outside, I really liked what I saw from him. Obviously being a hometown kid, got to see a lot more of him than most. But I'd like to hear your thoughts on Shaun Bradley because I really like that pick.
Yeah, I'm excited about Bradley and just want to say go Owls. I'm looking forward to getting to my degree and getting over there at Temple and going crazy. But Shaun Bradley for me is definitely a guy that slides into that inside linebacker position for us and is just a dog. They had the article about how he was going on Instagram and looking up guys, girlfriends, and just all that information. And, Jalen Ramsey said he did the same thing at Florida State. And so, give credit where credit's due. I'm sure he wasn't the first person, but
no way.
That's dirty, and when you're getting to that level of trash talking and getting into people's minds, and that just shows his mentality towards the game and his psyche. And so, with Shaun, I really enjoy seeing him play middle linebacker. Really came into his own as a senior, had a strong junior year as well. But is a guy that is reliable. You didn't see as much of the pass defense. He had 5 total pass deflections in his career. Had 3 interceptions over 4 years, really over 3 years though. Didn't do much as a freshman. Was really a low ranked guy going there in the first place. Dude played running back and then eventually transitioned to linebacker, and so had to learn the position. And was a dirty running back in high school. So this is a Jersey dude, man. And I spent time living in Jersey, so shout out to all my Jersey heads. And so I love the local prospect. I was excited about him. When you get him in the 6th round, again, he's a guy that comes in with very little pressure. And when you're looking at that middle linebacking core, you're talking about, CJ Edwards, and then kind of Shaun Bradley's next. And so, there were questions, CJ Edwards was an undrafted free agent. And so somebody that came in with very little fanfare around him. And I did a breakdown on him in Wisconsin. I like this game. I think that he brings a lot as a 2-down run stopper. Shaun Bradley to me is potentially a little bit more dynamic because he's more of an athlete, and being that the Eagles play 2/3, Short spends about 2/3 of his time in the nickel defense. That means that you need somebody that can play the pass a little bit more than Edwards has potentially shown. And so Shaun Bradley fits that profile. He's again another one of these fast athletic football players that just has a chance to really make a name for himself in a few years. Special teams for me is where he'll start. And seeing him and Davion on special teams, just mashing folks, just bashing people in the head and just, I don't want to get too crazy with the violence and the physicality, but that's what you want from a linebacker.
Yeah.
I want to see a linebacker that isn't afraid to stick his head in there, strong tackling, foundational, technique. And so I'm excited about Shaun. Again, guy, like you said, local product that we got a chance to see quite often when his name was announced. I don't think that a lot of people were surprised because the Eagles have been doing their due diligence on him anyway. And so fits right into what they were looking for. This whole draft class is about speed, athleticism, and intelligence. And he checks all three of those boxes. And production.
Definitely. And exactly. And that's what we talked about. Maybe a little bit more ready to step up because he's in a very big position of need for us in that middle linebacker. I also last year did a piece on TJ Edwards because he was the undrafted free agent that, I really was high on and thought, with the situation we had last year, he was pretty much the best bet we had that by the end of the year, he'd probably be starting. And sure enough, it was. Zach Brown, he's a run stopper. Nigel Brown, they all had their thing, but we needed somebody. Now, looking at it this year, sure, it's still very iffy, but I think we're a lot better off because, sure, we don't have Bradham. Maybe we bring him back. Maybe we bring in, there's a few linebackers that are out there. But, I really like where we stand just because of the fact you talked about Shaun Bradley being, more prepared to take over. So he's going to push Edwards. He definitely fills in the need for, like you said, we predominantly play nickel. You're using two linebackers, and they need to be able to cover. So I think Shaun Bradley is going to be prepared there more. And hopefully Davion Taylor, comes along in that sense. But Duke Riley, he's a special teams guy. Alex Singleton, another outside linebacker kind of guy where in the 4-3, you're probably going to see him. But these guys are going to push each other. I love it. So I was really high on this pick too. But like you said, the Eagles were doing their homework. And for any of the guys like us that are doing our homework, we knew that the Eagles were interested. So to see that pick, it was a good one, man. And we were all happy. We needed it.
and I have hope. I had some smoke for TJ Edwards. He actually ended up chiming in on a conversation I was having with another Fourth and John writer, and he liked one of the posts where we had a little bit of hate for him because we were doubting his ability, and he chimed in. He was sneaking around, man. So shout out to you, TJ, man, for being out here and sticking up for yourself. He didn't say anything, but he liked one of the posts that went against what we were saying. And eventually that woke me up. I was like, okay, I see you. I like stuff like that. And going back now, I'm kind of looking at the 2019 season and being able to see how he held it down in the middle with the snaps that he was given. I have faith in him. And we need strong guys that could play the run. Nate Gary is a guy that transitioned from safety to linebacker, but he has struggled with missed tackles. And he has struggled as a guy that gets washed out versus the run because he just doesn't have the technique yet. And so, we need people that are going to be able to stand up and stack and shed some of those big interior offensive linemen, and TJ Edwards can do that. I'm thinking that Shaun Bradley will be able to do that as well. Once we get all these rookies into an actual weight room, right, and like you go away from having to go to class, because most of the guys we drafted also have really strong GPAs. So they weren't just at college playing school. Like they were for real about their craft and their trade. Many of them graduated with their degrees. And so, these are really intelligent guys that gave the work necessary in the classroom and also in the football field. Now the football field is their classroom. They're full-time at this. And so they don't have to worry about those other distractions, potentially, quote unquote. And so, again, just getting these guys in weight rooms, getting these guys in film rooms, getting them around veterans that have already done this for several years and stuck in the NFL, which is one of the hardest things to do. I'm really excited about his upside along with several of the other rookies.
Definitely, man. I'm excited about that as well. And then, 4 picks later, another, we talked about a double dip, and we even made a little joke like, would we triple dip? And honestly, it wasn't even just a triple dip because at this point it's a quadruple because we traded for Goodwin. We'd already got Reagor and Hightower. Then you go ahead and you draft Quez Watkins and another speedster, 4.35, 40 speed, I believe. Another guy where you're just like, my God. So I'm very intrigued. We talked about the receivers, but if you want to talk a little bit about them, I know we talked a lot about the receivers, but it's another speedster, another guy added to the room. So, I'd love to hear your thoughts on him.
And, for me, Quez is just another one of those guys that adds a little bit of versatility. Had 18 career kick returns in his career, 19 career punt returns. And so he's somebody that has done multiple things, really went off as a senior in his last year. and was able to kind of just produce in a way that he hadn't previously. And so, for me, I guess he's really the one that's going to struggle probably the most in regards to like sticking on an NFL roster, just because he's buried behind so many other really talented players. But kind of like what you said about Hightower, he's 6'2", 190. And so if he develops physically, or 6 foot, 185, right? Like if he develops physically, he's somebody that can ultimately maybe fit in as that expert receiver. And he's going to have to fight like a dog though. And he's going to have to show some special teams chops. He's going to potentially, go on practice squad and may have to make the best of it, sort of like Greg Ward Jr. did. But I'm not going to doubt the man. He was drafted. He comes with that pedigree of being a drafted player. And so, this is an opportunity where, like, Kayvon Wallace said something that I loved, and he was basically like, he's not waiting around for an opportunity. He's coming to take food off a grown man's plate. When you come in with that mentality of like, listen, I'm taking somebody's job, you'd be surprised whose job you end up taking. And so I don't know if Quez is coming in thinking that way, but I hope he is, because that's the approach that you have to have in order to make a difference in the NFL, and really just in life, man. Anything you do, you have to be willing to put in more work, put in more effort, make the necessary tangible changes in your game, and get the reps, the positive reps necessary to become better. And so the opportunity is there. It's a wide open game behind, Reagor, Djax, and some of those other players. And so opportunities there. We'll see what he does with it.
Couldn't agree more, man. And, he definitely does have the biggest uphill battle. Luckily, with the new CBA, you're allowed to bring 2 guys up on game day. Right. So now you're essentially having 55 guys on your roster. Yeah. 48 are allowed to dress up. But, that'll be big for people like him. But you also have to watch out people stealing them for your practice squad. So
absolutely.
It's going to be intriguing to watch. We've got a whole room of them, man, like 14 receivers. So, but I love the pick too.
And sorry, I misspoke, as a junior. And so it was even a bit of a surprise that he declared it, ended up going into the NFL as a junior. Could have potentially helped his draft stock going for another year. And it's tough because when you come out and arguably one of the best draft classes over the past decade, or that stacks up well against some of the best over the past decade, you're going to fall, and it's going to put you in a position where you're really fighting for that opportunity. But he's coming to a team that needs the help. And so, Quez, go out there, take some food off a grown man's plate, and we'll see what happens.
You got your chance, man. Now let's see it. I can't wait. That's the thing. It's like we got to just talk about it for now. We all can't wait to see it. So
absolutely.
Now, before we get to the next draft pick, we got Steven here saying, Gary has a lot of potential. Now, that's the thing, and he's had that potential. And he actually showed a lot more last year. He did really well in coverage, was one of the better linebackers doing that. But as we talked about, he needs to work on that tackling. And if you're going to be out here in the NFL, man, you got to be able to do both. So his job's going to be on the line. But I love Gary, dude. I love the white snake. But, I mean, you better work on your tackling, dude, or you're going to lose your job. So, but, Steven, I couldn't agree more, man. We're all very excited. We've been talking about these draft picks. I mean, even as we're down toward the end, we're at 200 now, man. We're about to hit pick 10. And I'm still talking about how excited I am. And this might actually be the most excited I am. Prince Tega Winogo is a beast. Now, you talked about earlier in the video, some injuries, some things held him back, a little raw in times, but we watched tape on Jackie and him together. It really helped you see, and I think these kids are going to grow together. And I think this kid, oh my God, I hope not too soon that we need him, but when the time comes, I think this could be a steal. So love to hear your thoughts on Prince, an actual Prince.
So I was so high on Prince, and I think that coming in, people would have said, you're crazy that Jack Driscoll goes before Prince in the draft, right? Like, there's no way. Like, no, 3 rounds earlier, absolutely not. Like, get out of here. You don't know anything. You don't know what you're talking about. And then lo and behold, here we are where, like you said, they were able to trade back in that situation, get Goodwin, also pick up Prince. He's somebody for me. When I was watching Driscoll's tape, I was kind of watching them simultaneously and getting a chance to see both tackles at work. And he's a developmental guy. He still has some areas of growth. I'm always so excited because when you match those guys with Stoutland, who's just going to coach the heck out of them, it's always a plus for me. And so, I'm really excited to see him grow and develop. Again, getting him in that same room with Pro Bowl offensive linemen, even if they don't bring Jason Peters back. Trey Thomas is one of the most vocal guys on Twitter, and makes himself super available. I would think to some of these players, and watching him and Jimmy Kempski go back and forth around Jared Diller and what he was doing. And so, I think that Prince is going to be somebody or Andre Dillard, I'm sorry, who has to really prove himself. Again, when you're getting into like the later rounds and you're on that big board and you're somebody that just did not produce the way that you thought you would, but ultimately still got drafted, not like an undrafted free agent. So somebody that still got drafted was able to achieve that goal and accomplish that goal for himself. And there's still so many questions around what Andre Dillard is going to bring for us. And so, he most likely lines up as that backup to Dillard. And so if he's pushing Dillard in camp, I think the Eagles still give Dillard that nod just because he has the higher draft pedigree. But in the end of the day, you got to put the best 5 offensive linemen on that field. And at some point, Prince is going to push for that, as long as he can stay healthy, as long as he can continue to develop. But he's one of those guys for me that does have those longer arms that kind of keep those pass rushers at bay and just has that physical kind of body type and mentality that you look for in that blindside protector. Like you said, maybe he ends up being, Lane Johnson's replacement on the other side eventually. But one thing about the NFL, you just never know. And so, again, when you can just have as many backup guys as possible that can develop and coming in with like very low pressure around them to perform immediately, it's a great opportunity for them to just continue to develop while the lights aren't on them and, come out of left field 3-4 years from now and just like, wow, like, this dude. Listen, again, this class has the opportunity to be a game changer for the Eagles. And it's imperative because you saw a team like the Vikings get a lot better in the draft. Washington got a lot better in the draft. The Cowboys got a lot better in the draft. And so, it hurts me. Thankfully, the Giants didn't get so much better in the draft.
Yeah,
so, at least not everybody improved. Right, Gettleman did what Gettleman does. And so at least they didn't get so much better. But watching Washington improve, watching the Cowboys improve, this Eagles draft has to be a home run in a lot of ways because you have so much money tied to some of these older players like Brandon Graham and Carson Wentz is a big money player at quarterback. And so, rookies have to come in and be productive. And so, again, back to like the Jalen Hurts pick, it's tough because you want to see a second round guy play early, but then he's also somebody that is going to be relatively inexpensive for the next 4 years for us as a backup quarterback, quote unquote. So they're Howie's always playing chess and never checkers, man. He's the super capologist. And so I always trust his instincts in regards to like what he's doing and how he's trying to line these things up. And I'm hoping as we review this, you and I are doing this maybe 3 or 4 years from now, we're looking back on this and saying, hey, listen, like this was the draft class that broke the mold and really got us where we were trying to go. Like you said in the very beginning, is the foundation for Carson to be able to run up several of these Lombardi trophies and put himself in a position where he's that unquestioned quarterback that is the best in the NFC.
Love it. Yep. And, then that's what we did everywhere, and I agree. This needs to be that draft, and I think it definitely has the potential. And that's the thing you heard a lot, that word right there, potential, about this draft. Yeah. And, I don't know all about a quarterback factory, but one thing I do know is anytime I hear an offensive lineman is raw or he has this, as long as this dude's got the talent, just like when Jordan Mailata was brought in, I get excited because we have the best offensive line coach in Jeff Stoutland. So
no question.
I loved the fact that we drafted Dillard last year. That's actually the guy I had us picking last year and wanted us to pick because I thought learning from Peters would be perfect. Now, it sucks because Peters isn't here. So you hope that he taught, Dillard all he could and that Dillard and Johnson are going to help the rest. But maybe Peters comes back. So I don't know. What do you think about that, actually? What would you feel, having this talent here? Like, obviously we don't like Driscoll at tackle, but someone like Prince to play outside, Mailata possibly pushing. Do you think Peters is someone that we could bring back?
I'm all about having the best players available. For me, Jason Peters is a guy that has to come back on a team-friendly deal, potentially like an incentive-laden deal, sort of like what you talked about with Goodwin, where the upside is there for him to produce, puts together a Pro Bowl caliber season or first team All-Pro caliber season and gets compensated for that work. But being able to like get that flat contract where he's getting paid like a top 5 or top 10 left tackle in the NFL. I think those days are behind him. I saw him working out on Twitter and that kick step still is good, man. You know,
It
he was
really
out in the
is,
park.
man.
That kick step still is good, man. Those hands
He's
are
like
still
30,
working,
30,
man.
39. Like,
Yeah, I think 38, 39.
man,
He's the bodyguard, man. You know, he's
still love
somebody
him.
that it was a superb athlete. And why I have so much faith in Andre Dillard is because, you know, he came in with that athletic profile. He came in as a work in progress. And, you know, he was somebody that was well known as a pass protector, but had to learn how to really run block, because run blocking is a different mentality. That's getting your mitts on somebody and moving them, as opposed to like retreating and keeping somebody at bay from the quarterback. And so I can understand why he potentially did have that difficulty kind of making that transition to the NFL. And we talked about the learning curve with wide receiver. It's right there too with offensive line. Like, that is not an easy position. And so, you know, anyway, across the board, really any position, most of these guys are going to need 2 years before like we even really get a chance to see them scratch the surface. And so, you know, Jason Peters, I think, comes in and pushes for a starting position. And if anything else, you know, he's somebody that is an excellent sort of like player coach in transition at this point in his career. And I think that if he decided that he really wanted to get into coaching, like, there's a great opportunity there for him, because he has such an exemplary understanding of the game and has done it at such a high level. And everyone has nothing but positive things to say about him. Strong locker room guy. And so I'm never going to say, hey, if he was a bad locker room guy, I say leave him alone. But a really strong locker room guy, a champion of the city of Philadelphia. And like I said, I saw him in the park with that kick step, and I was like, okay, bodyguard, I see you. You know, I like that. You know, I like to see the passion. And so, you know, I would be 100% for bringing Jason back at the right price.
Me too. And I think that's the thing. I think, you know, if his heart feels it and he's willing to take that cut, you know, he would come back. And I don't think he'd be understanding that this is Dillard's job, but it's Dillard's job to lose. So if he's being outperformed, how can he help that? So I think he'd come in and be a great, like you said, a coach, players coach, someone like the same thing that happened to, you know, Trey Thomas. Maybe he jumps on the staff next year and he's helping out. And you talk about Trey Thomas still trying to help people, still trying to help reporters, still trying to show people, you know, how to actually watch tape. And before you're blaming it on certain people or before you're pointing fingers, maybe know what you're talking about. And that's why I love people like Trey Thomas on Twitter, because it's like, call them out, man. Don't let people talk out their ass that don't know what they're talking about. And
they were going at it on Twitter. And, you know, I learned so much just from, I think, the 4 clips that he commented on, where he was talking about both Andre Dillard and Lane Johnson, and just like their hand technique. Like, here's where they kicked and they should have done this. Or like, here's where they should have jutted their hands out to get a hand on the defender and instead kept their hands too low. And so I'm sitting there taking notes like, okay, like, yeah, right. Because I'm always trying to learn the offensive line. Because for me, like, that's where the game starts and finishes. If your quarterback can't get a clean pocket to throw from, if you can't open up running lanes for your running back, you could call it a day. It's over. It's over. And so, you know, I've always been actually played left guard as a freshman when I was a much different body size. And so I've always been passionate about the offensive line. And, you know, I don't think you can go wrong bringing in somebody like Jason Peters again at the right price to really work with these young guys and help them in their transition to the NFL to become, you know, really strong players and starters. And Jordan Mailata is somebody we haven't really talked about. And, you know, I hear a lot of steam about him potentially becoming a fullback as opposed to being that offensive tackle or backup offensive tackle, just because he was a phenomenal athlete as a rugby player. And so, you know, still to be determined around him and what he's able to bring or contribute. But again, there's a lot of question marks, even with Seumalo on that left side. Like, there are a lot of questions about what we're going to be able to do at left guard and at left tackle. And so, you know, having as many talented players as you possibly can, you can never go wrong.
Yep. I agree with that. So I'm all for it too. I think it wouldn't hinder whatever's happening. I don't think that. And if it pushes Dillard negatively in the wrong way, if competition pushes you and it doesn't push you to get better, then you're not meant for the job anyway. And then we push Prince to take the job. So I think it would be a good move. And if I'm sure he will get offers, especially after that video. But I agree that, you know, I'd be all for bringing him back. But then with the last pick, you know, actually, before we hit that, Mailata, I'm also very intrigued about. You know, I briefly mentioned him. Just, we need to see what he's got, and we've been waiting, you know, and versatile guys that are raw. You know, we talk about Stoutland's had some time to work on him. Maybe you move him back to some kind of different position and try to use him. I don't know. But I'd like to see something from him this year, or he's probably going to be gone. But, hey, man, I haven't seen anything yet. So I'm not going to sit here and say that, maybe if Peters doesn't come back, maybe all of a sudden Mailata becomes, and we remember someone like Villanueva who you give up easily on, and then he becomes one of the best in the game. So it's like, maybe give this guy a little time. Like we talked about with receivers, you mentioned also very hard offensive line. You mentioned, how you've respected the line. When I was a kid, my dad taught me, because of John Runyon and Trey Thomas, the importance of the offensive line. And the reason I get to talk to Trey Thomas and he followed me is because a couple years ago I told him, how much I respect the line and I wanted to learn more. So he's been helpful. And dude, I'd love to get someone like him on the show because just like you said, jotting down notes every time he's talking, saying something, it's like, huh? Like I never played line. So, I mean, I can watch as much tape and hear as much, but to hear it from someone who, actually did it, I love it. So I think getting guys like Jason Peters back into the room and helping these guys learn things, little nuances like that you'd be like, what was that? Like, you don't even know what he's talking about at the time. So I think it'd be an amazing pick. So all for that. And then with the last pick, and this is nuts, we're still talking about it because this is how exciting this draft was. But the last pick, more of a tweener guy. I think you were still on the Fourth and John podcast. I think we were all talking about this pick. He brought in, he's an outside linebacker in a 3-4. But he's going to be a defensive end for us. He's an edge rusher, a little bit skinnier, but I think it might have been Chris. Somebody made the comment that, this was a Connor Barwin pick. And, the guy kind of reminds you of Connor Barwin. So, I mean, I like the pick. It's our last pick of the draft. We gained all those additional picks. It was 233 was the pick. So, I mean, I love it. And the kid's going to have to come in and compete, probably hit the practice squad. But I liked it and intrigued to hear your thoughts on Casey Tuo.
For me, so with Toole, sitting behind Jannard Avery, who was like a linebacker kind of tweener himself that got converted to defensive end. Josh Sweat, who really hasn't reached the expectations that he had after, really struggling with injuries throughout most of his career. That kind of sapped some of the athleticism that he had early on. And then Sharif Miller last year, who was a person that I was really high on and I thought could make that transition to the NFL and kind of not be an impact player necessarily, but a really strong rotational guy that we really just didn't get a chance to see. I like Casey. And Connor Barwin absolutely was like the first person that came to mind for me. And Connor Barwin was somebody that had a really good NFL career because he learned quickly. And he was somebody that refused to not make it. And you really have to have that mentality to really make it in the NFL, whether you're a first round pick or, Mr. Irrelevant, it doesn't matter. You have to go in and learn and get the right reps and do the right things and take care of your body. I love the fact that in his last year, he was able to get like a really large jump in production. And so was able to put up the 8 sacks and also 11 and a half tackles for a loss. And so that, when you see that production jump, and just realize that like, okay, this is a guy that could potentially, you see the tools, you see some of the things that he needs to do, you see the versatility, but he'll have to learn how to keep his hand in the ground and just be a productive player in that regard all year long. And we'll have like a learning curve, but gets to play behind some really good guys. I mean, who could you ask for, or what better person to learn from than Brandon Graham, right? Who's somebody that was drafted high, and I'll never forget that because I wanted Earl Thomas in that pick, and when they took
I wasn't happy either, man.
Oh my gosh,
Michigan,
got hurt, and then all of these different things, but really has developed into a very consistent player and somebody that I love because he's a two-way guy. He sets the edge well versus the run, and he also gets a lot of pressures. Doesn't always convert into sacks, hasn't necessarily been like a numerous back-to-back double-digit sack guy, but he's a guy that like gets a ton of pressure on the quarterback and clearly understands the game of football and was able to overcome a lot of adversity in his career early on to just become an NFL champion. And played a very pivotal role in that Super Bowl and that entire playoff run. And so, for Casey, he gets a chance to learn from guys like that and just learn the game in general. And again, with these later round picks, they don't come in with the same pressure that a Derek Barnett does. And so, when you see Barnett continuously struggling and kind of put it together last year, not really reaching the expectations that I certainly had. I thought he was going to be a monster coming in and, was putting up Myles Garrett type numbers in the SEC, but wasn't drafted in the same position clearly as a Myles Garrett. And so to see him not really be able to reach his peak in ability yet because of injuries and just inconsistency. It's a wide open bet, right? Like, I think that Malik Jackson is going to get some reps outside there in that 7 and that 9 technique. And when you look at that interior defensive line, there's just some monsters in there. But realistically, defensive end, pass rusher specifically, third down pass rusher is a question mark. And, if something happens to Brandon Graham, who's getting up there in age, or if something happens to Derek Barnett, potentially there's a chance right there for Tua to come in and really be productive for us. May have to make a name for himself on special teams, may have to really just kind of grind it, maybe spend some time on the practice squad, honing his craft before he really gets a chance to just take advantage of the opportunity in front of him. But like we've said, this is open. No one's going to necessarily get handed a job. They're the high budget guys and the guys that have a high cap number. But outside of them, a lot of those guys in the defensive end position are young guys that haven't proven it yet. And so, he has a chance to come in, and if he can learn quickly, sky's the limit.
Definitely. And you talk about, he's not going to come in and be relied upon. And, one thing he does have is he is a versatile guy. He's more of a tweener, and he could definitely help on special teams, not one of those slow defensive ends or anything. So he's a guy that could help there, but he doesn't need to come in. Like you said, he gets to learn from someone like Brandon Graham and Derek Barnett. And then the competition behind him, I think Josh Sweat is really going to have an opportunity to step it up this year, and I think he will. I've really loved what I've seen from him. And then we traded a third-round pick for someone like Jannard Avery, so you really want to see him come in after finally learning the system. He's going to have a weird offseason, but, an offseason under his belt, and we're going to hope that he produces. But then you had mentioned Sharif Miller. You didn't see him at all last year to get to play. Didn't suit up at all. But I have faith in the kid, and I think with little work, he could be one of those guys that could play inside and out like Brandon Graham. So you talk about the opposite of someone like Malik Jackson, who predominantly is inside who can play out. We love those kind of guys. So Malik Jackson will be helping outside there. Deshaun Hall probably going to start the season on the PUP list with that injury, but I think he's going to produce too. So you got to look at, people were freaking out. We didn't get an edge rusher. And that was somewhere where I thought we could definitely address. And it's not necessarily like we still can't. I know there's a certain name people like to throw around a lot, but, I think I like where we are right now. And I wouldn't lose my mind if we didn't add anybody. But, there are some names out there. So I might as well just get your thoughts on it because everybody already talks about it and wants to talk about it. So speaking of edge rushers, what do you think of Jadeveon Clowney? Like, what are your thoughts if we were to add someone like that?
I'm big on Jadeveon Clowney. I was going back and forth with Mike K on Twitter because he was saying that it probably isn't worth it because of the fact that the Eagles are trying to be really responsible this year and not hand out a ton of money so that they don't have to worry about the cap implications in 2021, where there'll definitely be a crunch. For me, I'm not a capologist. That's not my money, man. So I'm saying, listen, if you could get Jadeveon Clowney or Everson Griffin for the right price and get them in this year to really push Derek Barnett and really just add another dynamic pass rusher to a team that's pretty dynamic. And a part of the reason, again, why I think the Eagles didn't feel it was a necessity to address pass rushers, A, the board didn't fall to them that way, and then B, we're really underestimating the type of pressure that Malik Jackson can produce and really garner outside. Fletcher Cox kicks outside in certain pass down situations. And he's tough as a 7 technique. He's a guy that can line up right on the outside shoulder of a left or right tackle and really push the pocket and get pressure. And so, I think that Malik Jackson adds a dynamic or element that we're underestimating. I'm not paying a premium for Jadeveon Clowney for the right amount of money, man. I'm all the cash rules, everything around me. I grew up on that Wu-Tang. And so, cash and make the right thing happen. And you get Jadeveon in here and people say he's not that great and he doesn't do this and he doesn't do that. What he does is take pressure off the other players on that defensive line. He's somebody that everyone is paying attention to. And so you may not see him exactly. And so if you're double teaming him and then you have to double team Fletch, Javon Hargrave is going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Graham is going bananas. Malik Jackson is going crazy. And so, when you have a defense that doesn't utilize a lot of blitz in it, it's all about those 4 guys getting a pass rush. you have to think about adding a Jadeveon Clowney to a lesser extent, and Everson Griffin, somebody who really just acted a fool in Minnesota, and has been somebody that was underestimated in regards to his impact in the game because he's playing across from a Danielle Hunter, and who's just a monster of his own right, and a really ascending player in the NFL. And so I think he gets a bum rap as a guy that just doesn't have it in him anymore. But Everson Griffin's a problem too. Yeah. So when you balancing those two guys or additional free agents that are out there that can potentially make an impact for you, I think that you really look at this year and say, okay, we're going all in. I will probably stay away from Ansah. I think Bennett has probably seen his last snaps here. There's a possibility of like a Vinny Curry. Cameron Wake is probably Jamal Shear, and Shear for me is somebody that can play the run tough. He plays the run tough.
Take over for Vinny.
Yeah, he plays the run tough, and he understands, much like Brandon Graham, how to set an edge, and push that ball back inside, which is awesome. Mark, exactly. You already know, Mark. He's a disruptor, and if you don't double team him and you just giving him free run to a quarterback, I mean, unfortunately, he ended Carson Wentz's season, and it was a cheap hit, and it wasn't a great hit, and questions about the hit and all those things. When we playing football, man, we all know anybody that played this game and strapped it up and got between those lines, crazy things happen when that ball gets snapped and you're running around trying to make plays. But very few people can spy a quarterback or catch a quarterback the way Clowney can.
Exactly, and that's the thing. And I made a post the other day about it, and it's like, is he worth that kind of money? Now, clearly, nobody is giving him that kind of money. So if it starts to fall, how do you not add a premier edge rusher? I understand he took a cheap shot on our quarterback, and that hurts us. But if you go back a year ago when everybody was talking about the possibility of getting someone like Jadeveon Clowney before the Seahawks did, everybody wanted him. You clearly want a need like that. And edge rusher, I can't stress enough every video how much – defensive line is the most important position to me. Yeah. That's how we won the Super Bowl. With that rotation, I don't care if you bring in Old Man River. We had Chris Long and Michael Bennett back then. And that rotation, bringing guys like that, you mentioned Everson Griffin, perfect. Someone like him, and then you add in, a Jabal Sheard, someone else, for the same amount of money. I'm okay with that too. But adding premier edge rushers, I'm all about it. I might be okay with what we have here, but I'm also okay with the fact that we have $24 million in cap. Sure, we roll over next year $50 million over the cap. That's not good. But guess what? Every single week, I feel like I'm making some kind of article or picture or something about, how we just restructure this guy, how we just restructure that guy. So if you think Howie's not sitting there with a backup plan for when he does sign somebody, as to what he's going to do next year, you're wrong. Because he is the cap master. He knows what's going on. And if he signs someone like Clowney, he will. And he doesn't give a shit if it's $70 million over next year, because we'll figure it out. And, I'm all for winning a Super Bowl. So if it's somebody like him, do the damn deal. Let's get us a Super Bowl. So, edge rusher somewhere. I don't feel that you should spend, anywhere over 15 mil at this point. I think, a little less than that, I'd be for it. But if you could add someone like Griffin, dude, I really like him. So I don't think it necessarily needs to be Clowney, but I'm all about adding an edge rusher.
And I'm in that ballpark too, that camp, I should say, with you around I think for me that 10 to 12, 12 is kind of the area where I'm like, okay, if I could get a Davion for 1 year, $12 million, maybe 110, $2 million in incentives, and you get some sacks going, you get a Pro Bowl in there, we'll pay you the money.
There you go.
But we have to be all in to get Carson Wentz the talent. And when we talk about talent, we're like, okay, the skill position players, the offensive, like you said, it's the defensive line. When you have a defense that does not blitz, that plays a ton of nickel, you have to have dynamic players on the defensive line. And I think right now with Javon Hargrave, who I cannot wait to see in a one-gap scheme like he was at South Carolina State, I did an article on him, and he's just going to go absolutely bananas, man. I'm excited. When you have a Darius Slay that can lock up a number one receiver and kind of tether himself to a dude, I have a lot of faith in Avonte Maddox and what he'll be able to do this year. We'll talk about it in a second, but being able to re-sign Rasul Douglas, Crevon LeBlanc, right? We have all of these people. Nickel Roby, who is an outstanding nickel cornerback in his own right. And so, we have the secondary kind of locked up, question marks at the linebacker position, but there aren't a lot of dynamic linebackers we can add at this point. There's still some really dynamic pass rushers still available for us that could change the game in a lot of ways and make quarterbacks uncomfortable. And like adding a Jadeveon Clowney or an Everson Griffin is maximizing Carson Wentz's window for a championship. And, you know, when you have a dynamic defense that gets teams off the field and really flips the game in regards to field position, then you give Carson Wentz a shorter field to work with. And we know when he's healthy and he has these guys around him that can make plays, what that ends up looking like. He's on ball out, man. And again, you know, you go from a 10-6 to a 12-4, a 13-3. And we're in that 12-4, 13-3 range. You're now talking about a 1 or 2 seed in the NFC. You're talking about a bye and home field advantage in the playoffs. And teams hate coming to Philadelphia. You know, people cry about coming to Philadelphia because we the realest fans out here, man. We the rowdiest people out here, bro. You know, right. We get crazy and we love our team and we love this sport. And so people don't want to come to Philadelphia for a playoff game. They're scared to death of that. And so let's do everything we can, Howie. I know you listening, Howie, you tuning in. So Howie, do everything we can to get the best players possible. Let's worry about the cap in 2021 when that time comes. But let's maximize this window for Carson.
For sure. Couldn't agree more. Couldn't agree more. And, you know, that's the thing. You know, he is a wizard. So he'll worry about it when the time comes. And he'll address it throughout the season. He does every year that he's been here, you know, and it goes under the radar a lot of times. But he's restructuring, doing this. And it's all looking forward. He knows what he's doing. So I think people don't realize it. He probably has given himself $24 million to be able to do what he wants. So I think if he sees the right deal, he's going to make it. So, and, you know, we were talking about the draft and kind of just went into Clowney there. But after the draft, you know, I thought, you know, the next day, the undrafted free agents, I was actually excited about a lot of these guys too. You look at a running back like Michael Warren, who actually is a pretty tough kid. He's like 5'9", 225, but he runs tough. That's something we're looking for. Someone that's going to push Holyfield. Killins is obviously like a Sproles type back, needs to beef up a lot to be a Sproles, but you know, he's a quick back, somebody that could be used in a lot of dynamic plays, like a Hardman for us. But yeah, sure, call him a running back. I doubt he'd be much of a running back for us. But I like these kids, man. I like the tight end, the center, all of it. But I'm intrigued to see who you like off this list and what do you think about it?
For me, Warren is probably the person that jumps out the most because coming out of the draft, I was like, okay, you know, I was like AJ Dillon. If we could get, I'm over here like Mr. Burns, like excellent. Like if we could get our hands on AJ Dillon, but then AJ Dillon goes in the second round, right? And so it's like, okay, you know, in reality, we were talking about him and kind of that, you know, I was projecting him as like a 4th round pick probably. And so to see him go off the board so much earlier is like, okay, everyone saw what we all saw as fans, right? Like these scouts and these talent evaluators were all over his ability to change a game as a big back and what he'll bring in the NFL is unquestioned. And so, you know, I was like, okay, where is that big back? Because Miles Sanders is not him. He's good in short yardage situations and really showed over the course of the NFL season that he was absolutely got better and unfortunately got hurt in the last game of the season. But then we got a chance to see Boston Scott ball out, right? And so Boston, we're like, oh, damn, Boston Scott's doing stuff that we didn't even think he could do. And so, you know, for me, Michael Warren is a person that I'm like, okay, let me see what he can do. Let me see him line it up. Let me see him get a chance to really ball out and just provide that production in his senior year at Cincinnati. Like he really ended up again just being a dynamic dude. I'm sorry, his junior year at Cincinnati, 261 carries for 1,265 yards, 14 touchdowns. As a sophomore, had 244 carries for 1,329 yards and 19 touchdowns. And so he really shows the capability to put the ball in the end zone, which is something that is a value trait in the NFL. Had a couple receptions too. So he's a guy that can kind of keep you honest in that regard. But, you know, for me, played well, 26 carries for 92 yards and a touchdown, 3 catches and 27 yards and a touchdown versus UCLA in the beginning of the year. 21 carries, 405 yards at 5 yards per clip against Boston College in the very last game of the season. Had several, 700-yard games and just missed one against Memphis his junior year. And so, you know, there's a guy that is a big dude, has a large frame to him. Killins, like you said, is a smaller, more speedy back. When you watch what he did at UCF, he was a guy that I was like, okay, he can make people miss, but when he gets hit, what does he do? He wasn't going down automatically. Like, he was getting hit and fighting through in contact. And I love that with smaller backs. And then somebody else, Dante Olson from Montana. Olson I think he had the highest vertical leaps, like 41.5-inch vert at the combine. Did not test very well from like a speed standpoint, but he's a guy that can read and react, right? Like he gets downhill. You see him machine, and like he built himself up, and really proved to be a very valuable player on that Montana defense. And what I love about linebackers is when they hit you. I hated it playing wide receiver, but I love watching it now. It's like when they hit you, you remember it. And so he's another one of those guys that like when he hits you, it's like, oh damn, like that hurt a little bit more than I thought it would. Like, and so you get that head on a swivel, and the same with Davion Taylor. He was a guy that like when he hits you, you remember it. And once your head starts going like this, any person that played the skill position, when you start looking around, that's when you start getting those drops. And that's what you're looking for. And he's a guy that won't be afraid to get in there and maybe is a TJ Edwards type player for us that, later on in the season shows that he can really be a producer for us.
Definitely. And, he's a tackling machine, like we said. And, he played like all a season last year with a cast on. The guy is tough as nails. So, that linebacking position, it's got a battle. And we're going to see these guys push each other. So I'm intrigued to see what he's got. Another one on there I really like. I like the guys you mentioned. Michael Warren's probably my favorite as well. But Julian Good-Jones, he's very intriguing. Another versatile guy playing center, tackle, guard. He can play it all. I don't want to see him play tackle for us. He's guard, center. But like we talked about, the versatility to be able to do that in practice, to be able to just show that you can help in other areas is going to get you. So a lot of great names, Arnold and Riley, those defensive backs. There are corners that'll probably be more like safeties. But in this defense, it doesn't matter what we call them. We need the guys that are going to fit the mold. So bringing in guys of that Malcolm Jenkins mold and pushing people to compete. And you look at someone like Menasha Bailey, a kid that was a linebacker converted into a wide receiver, 6'2", big guy. Really intrigued to see what he's got. And then Khalil Tate at the bottom, he's actually a wide receiver. He came out of Arizona as a quarterback, but another guy going to be a Greg Ward mold that, so every guy has competition now. So I loved the undrafted free agent class as well. And I really think they're going to push not only the draft class, but our veterans. And all around, I love this whole draft, man.
Yeah, and again, like you just said, it's all about that versatility. Like these are guys that can do multiple things. Shout out to Bailey from Morgan State. Shout out to all my HBCU alums. My wife went to FAMU, so I'm all about that HBCU love. And I feel like a lot of these guys are passed over, and I'm loving to see more of the black athletes really trying to shine a light on these HBCUs and giving these kids a chance to even potentially have their own combine to be able to showcase what they can do. Because you make a choice to attend the HBCU shouldn't be a knock on you. That doesn't mean that you can't play at Ohio State or at a Florida. You chose to go to a different place. And like, when we really look back in the day, like a lot of these black athletes had to go to HBCUs because they didn't have a choice.
You had to go where you could.
Exactly. And so like there's a pipeline there in place. And I like the fact that, again, you're seeing dudes who play one position and then like Khalil Tate now has to play another. And so like that means that they already are cross training. And even the guys that we drafted, Driscoll, who had to learn to play one position and then now is potentially going to be a center or a guard. And so that flexibility can't hurt you. People always used to say jack of all trades, master of none. But I think that thought process has changed drastically. And people used to always call me that. And I'm like, man, listen, I know how to do a bunch of things really well. And like you do one thing excellent. And so you're going to get replaced and I probably won't. And so, when you're talking about, okay, I can fill in here and I can fill in there. I can play a little bit of nickel corner. I can play some dime linebacker, or I can play defensive end, but I can also in different blitz techniques, drop into, the flat and cover a running back or cover a tight end, or, play some QB spy. And, as a deep safety, I could play some robber in the right techniques on the right blitzes and step up and take over the middle. And so, all of that stuff is valuable, man. And I think that you can't overestimate or underestimate any of these guys because we haven't seen them do it in the NFL yet. Let's get them deep into the playbook. Let's get these coaches an ability to work with them. Let's get these veterans downloading what they've learned in the NFL to these guys, and let's give them a chance. But the Eagles have, if we've done anything, we've hit on these later round picks and some of these undrafted free agents. I think Howie and his group, and even back to Andy Reid, we've really seen them struggle with some of the higher rated draft picks, right? Like when we're getting into that first round and we're talking Marcus Smith and we're talking Danny Watkins and even Derek Barnett. I hate to even mention these names. Nelson Aguilar, right? And even Derek Barnett, who was drafted over Marlon Humphrey, who was drafted over TJ Watt, who was drafted over, I believe, even Tre'Davious White from Buffalo. So, guys that would have been impact players here. And we're still trying to see the best of what Derek Barnett has to offer. And so, they struggle with some of the earlier draft picks, but really hit it later on and really bring in strong undrafted free agents for competition. And so I'm less worried about those guys. I really want to see Jalen Reagor and Jalen Hurts get coached up in a way that's going to help them develop and grow really rapidly, so that they could become playmakers for us sooner than later. Well, less Hurts. I'm willing to wait on Hurts. Carson, man. But
you want to see him get better sooner. Yeah,
exactly.
For sure. And I agree with you, man. And I think, a lot of these guys, and we want to see Reagor, we want to see all these guys get better. And that also worries me too, because you hit the nail on the head. We struggle with the first couple rounds. I don't know. Now, clearly last year we got ourselves a steal with Miles Sanders. Our thing of Whiteside, maybe a little iffy on that. Dillard's still up in the air. Derek Barnett, I mean, you think the kid beats Reggie White's sack record. You're like, okay, well, he's going to come in and destroy, right? Not so much yet. So, the verdict's still out. We need to see, these guys produce. But I agree with you. I think it's weird that we always find the diamonds in the rough in later rounds, so we can feel more confident, weirdly, that, these guys will produce. But one of the things I did want to get to, and I think it kind of just ties into it, is the fact that I think this is the route the Eagles should go, but I wanted to get your thoughts on it. But, putting someone like Alshon Jeffrey on the PUP list, still dealing with that Lisfranc injury, that allows you, to give one of these younger wide receivers more of a chance to grow. And, you get that additional, whether they bring him back in 3 weeks or not. So you're looking at maybe 9 weeks, 5 to 9 weeks where, you could bring someone else in. It doesn't take up a roster spot. And do we keep 6? Do we keep 7 wide receivers? So there's a couple of questions. I just thought maybe if you could, elaborate on your thoughts about the wide receiver position and what we could do there.
Lisfranc injury is such a complicated injury, especially with a guy like Alshon, who has struggled with a variety of different injuries in his career. And when he had the injury and the recovery timetable, he's looking at late training camp, week 1, week 2 as his targeted time coming back anyway. I'm kind of split here. I'm okay, I can see the benefit of putting him on the PUP. Like you said, it doesn't cost us a roster spot. We can activate him later on in the season, and giving him a chance to come in week 7, week 8, and really produce from week 8 all the way through the rest of the season and then into the playoffs, because we're making the playoffs. I don't doubt that at all. And so, being able to kind of buy him that buffer could be a good thing. But I also know that it's really important for Alshon Jeffrey to come in and be able to produce pretty quickly, because there were so many trade rumors around him. People still are under the impression that he was the player that was Josh snitching to Josina Anderson. And so, folks are like, man, he's the guy that was trying to undermine Carson Wentz. But if we're going to keep it 100, he wasn't the only person saying that about Carson Wentz, right?
Yeah.
There were a lot of rumors swirling around Carson. And so we don't know if it was him. Even if it was, he wasn't by himself in that boat. And so, he took down all this ego stuff from Instagram. And so I feel like it's really important for him to show early, be in the building, be working with this group, be able to name him as a starter in week 1 or in week 2, along with Deshaun Jackson and potentially Reagor or Goodwin, and really kind of put him in a position where he's the leader of the pack. And so that's where my concern comes in, putting him on PUP, is he'll potentially be the forgotten man or the man left out. And also, to be quite honest, I would love for him to play well. And if we see like, hey, we got, JJ Arcega-Whiteside's like really showing that he could kind of, learn here, or Hightower really showing that he could be an X in the NFL, it gives us a chance to showcase him for a couple of weeks and then flip him at the trade deadline, and try to get a little bit of something for him before we're eating all of that cap in 2021. And so, he's one of those guys with a bloated contract that like is going to go into why we're facing so many dead money issues potentially in 2021. And so let's see if we could get a 3rd or 4th round pick for the dude. And so, again, that was a long-winded way to say I'm not sure. I could see it playing out either way, but I would love to see him active early so that we can either get an opportunity to trade him for another player or a pick, or potentially see him play out this season and really be an alpha dog for us, getting a lot of man coverage with these guys blowing the top off the defense.
Definitely, man. And that is one of the things you got to worry about. And, I talked about that a lot, before the draft. Everybody, it was ridiculous with the Brashard Perriman, all the receivers everybody wanted. It's like, look, I didn't want any of these overrated guys that were getting overpaid, and we need to have issues. Yeah. And, the thing was, though, that people seem to forget, it was now when it came down to it, wide receiver or bust. Everybody was losing their mind, and it was, we're screwed if we don't add a wide receiver. Now, I was in the boat that we needed a wide receiver, but not under the impression that we are going to lose all hope. Now, I knew we'd address it. I didn't think we would quadruple dip, with the trade and the 2 draft picks, and then you add 2 undrafted free agency. Yeah. But we go ahead and add all this talent there. I love it. But people seem to forget that Alshon Jeffrey is still one of the top receivers in the game. Sure, he's probably fallen off a little bit, getting up there in age, but he's still pretty phenomenal. What was the stat? I saw something where it was like, out of all the touchdowns Alshon's had here, it's like 3 with Nick Foles and like 17 with Carson Wentz. Like, they are really well. They play really well together. And we had something going last year. When you add Deshaun Jackson, it was going to finally show this offense what it was capable of. And we thought we had all the guys. Trust me, I was pretty bummed too when everybody started getting hurt and everybody started dropping off like flies. But, it's like we have those pieces now. But I'm with you, dude. It's scary that, what if he is ready? What if he is healthy? Because how scary would this offense be with him, Deshaun Jackson, Marquise Goodwin, Jalen Reagor, and then you look at the other positions, Goddard and Hurts, the best duo of tight ends in the league. Miles Sanders,
Boston Scott,
best offensive line. Carson Wentz. It's like, you're still here.
Yeah, I'm still here, bro.
Dude, I don't know what's happened there. You just kicked me off. I'm getting tired of this. I'm glad I came back. I was like, oh God, everything went black, and it was like, you have been disconnected due to poor. And I'm like, I've literally been doing nothing but sitting here.
Right.
So yeah, sorry about that, man. But yeah, what I was going with was the fact that this team is pretty dominant with all those guys in week 1. We got to see that last year. And I think with the people we added and him, it's going to be tough. So that's a tough decision for them if he ends up on the PUP list or not. So, it's going to be tough. And if he is healthy, then I think you do bring him back. Because would you rather have one of the best receivers in the game, or, we got to think of the future? And who cares? We want to win now. So, yeah, man, it's going to be a tough one. So good points there on that one. And one more thing we did talk about, you had mentioned a little bit earlier, one of the things the Eagles did do, a couple of things that had happened. I liked, building for the future and looking for that cap next year. We had restructured Goodwin. We went ahead and actually brought Clement back. He's going to compete in the running back room, but it's only at 25, the veteran minimum at his position where he's at in his years, all that. Now, we just did the same thing with Rasul Douglas, which is really weird because you don't see that with the guy still on his rookie contract. But we restructured him, and now he's making $825. He's going to cost $1 million in the cap, but I like that move. We also exercised the option on Derek Barnett. So a couple of the moves that were made to ensure the future and give these guys some hope here. But I like those moves. And what are your thoughts on those moves?
Yeah, I mean, I love the moves. Again, I'm happy to see Rasul back. He's a big defensive back that's a little bit different than some of the other guys that we have on the roster. I mean, even bringing in Duke Riley for $910,000, he's not somebody necessarily that's going to push for a ton of reps necessarily, but you just don't know, right? Like he's somebody that has some upside as an athlete and still to be determined around what exactly he'll do or could do for us overall. And so, I mean, I'm excited to have those guys back. Again, my trust and belief in Howie, even sometimes when I'm like, man, Howie, what is going on with these draft picks? I'm always like, those contracts are crazy. The Darius Slay contract is crazy. The dummy years in Javon Hargrave's contract they're crazy. And so, when you see some of these numbers and like, it's X years for X amount of dollars, I'm always at spot rack like, okay, let me dive under the hood. Let me see what this is really talking about, because that Howie's working his magic and he's always going to set the Eagles up for success. And he's somebody that has the Les Snead got caught up, because he didn't have the long-term vision necessary to keep his team competitive. Whereas you see somebody like Howie Roseman has that long-term understanding. And, when he got put in the bathroom the year that the head coach from Oregon that will not be named on this show took over the whole show. I was gonna say his name. I was like, no, we're not gonna say his name.
I was glad you didn't, man.
But when Howie got put in the bathroom and then got back out the bathroom, he had a different mentality of the whole game and really just has really done a great job. Him working in tandem with Joe Douglas and really being able to just make excellent moves with contracts and re-signing guys, and just his ability to understand the money aspect has been so important. And so, we already talked about that. This draft is going to be foundational in whether or not we're competing 5 years from now, or if we're a team that's really struggling, middling 500, maybe slightly below 500, even with a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback. If you're not drafting well and you're not getting guys in on incentive laden deals as free agents, or just really hitting it out of the park. Like Nigel Bradham was for me a great pickup. Didn't cost us a lot of money, but really produced for us in that nickel position. And so I like to see Rasul come back. I like what he did with Darius Slay and Javon Hargrave in regards to the trade, and also the contracts that they were handed. It keeps us flexible. It keeps the options open if they don't perform. And so, we'll see what happens. I'm more excited, I would say, about the option of having a guy like Alshon back, like we were talking about, because he is a dynamic player and is different than a lot of the other receivers that we have. He and JJ Arcega-Whiteside are similar in body type and skill type, but what Alshon did in that Super Bowl versus the Patriots, I mean, they had to move stuff. The Patriots pride themselves on putting the number 2 and a bracket on the number 1 wide receiver and letting Stephon Gilmore shadow a number 2. He forced the Patriots outside of their regular game plan, and they moved Stephon Gilmore to defend him. And certainly Gilmore locked them up, but that's not the point. That freed up everybody else at that point. And so, Alshon Jeffrey has more than proven his ability in the NFL. I am not on the, cut Alshon, wasn't on the cut Alshon bandwagon. I'm on the trade Alshon at the deadline for the right thing. Potentially, exactly. But, I think that overall, this is a roster that's constructed to compete. I have no question that this team makes the playoffs as long as Carson Wentz stays healthy, as long as, guys like Fletcher Cox and Brandon Graham stay healthy, and as long as, our system continues to accentuate the talents of the players that we have. I'm gassed up, man. This podcast and this conversation today has really got me hyped. We went through a bunch of rookies, all the way to the 7th round, and even talk undrafted guys, and the energy stayed high because these are all guys that potentially could contribute one way or another.
Definitely, man. And that's the thing. It's like, you talk about setting up for the future. I think a lot of people went into this draft. I wouldn't say, they're misconstrued about what needed to be done, but
Right.
I think they put a lot more into certain positions where it was like, you have to remember a lot of people are coming back from injury. That was our biggest thing the last couple of years. So we added depth. We added youth at places where we know that, okay, we got this guy back, but let's back him up with this guy. Like everywhere you look, you're like, oh, that guy's got a backup. Well, that guy's got a little clone pretty much, where it's like, I get what you're doing. You're finally, they're learning, it seems. So it's like, all right. So I agree with you, man. I couldn't be more than ecstatic. And I love talking about it. And, they've heard me talk about it, but that's why I wanted to bring you on, because it's like, people like a different perspective. And I loved what you had to say about everything, man. And, that's what the Eagles fans are looking for, man. Some true, honest thoughts from people that are actually putting in the work, and you go to the scouting academy, and that's awesome, dude. You're going to Temple. Like, you're truly trying to be a journalist. You're doing stuff and all of us are trying to do things, and we all have our own ways and unorthodox ways, and it's awesome. But one thing we have in common is we love our birds. So anybody who loves their birds is welcome here at On the Road to Victory.
Yes, sir.
So I thank you for coming on, and I'll definitely have you back on again, man, when there's more to talk about. But you can take this time now, man. For anybody, dude, check him out at Love for the Game Mal. It's right there underneath him. Check him out on Twitter. Seriously, awesome content. He's a writer for 4th and John. Like, we're doing videos, all kinds of stuff to try to get you guys, keep you entertained, do what we can. But you can take this time now, Mal, to say your goodbyes, man.
Yeah, man. Again, I just want to thank you for having me on today. This has been something that I've aspired to do for a really long time. And so, I'm in the process of making a transition from one career to another. And doing that at 35 isn't easy. There are a lot of young guys chasing this game, and, these dudes are 24, 25 years old. And so I'm an old man to a lot of them. But, what we talked about before is that, we've had to grind, and we've had to be hungry, and we've had to go without to get to where we're trying to go. And so, I'm someone that I believe in high integrity and respect. And so, yeah, definitely follow me on Twitter. Definitely follow Jimmy. Definitely follow 4th and John, man. Galen, E-Rock, Chris, Soko. The whole team, man, the whole squad, Mark, everybody, because, we're really out here trying to do the best we can. And it's a grassroots movement. And why I joined this team and why I stay so loyal is because we're not commercial. We're not people that don't connect with the people. We're folks that are from this city for the most part. And if we're not from this city, we have so much love for this city that we might as well be from it. But I'm from West Philly, man. I grew up here in this city. I'm blessed to be back here and blessed to just be able to talk this game that I love so much, and, be able to invest in myself to go back to school and go and attend their scouting academy. And for anybody interested, the scouting academy is awesome. Day 2 of the summer cohort. When I get off of here, I'm gonna go chop it up with my wife for a bit and then finish up my homework before I go to sleep around midnight. But, you have to put the work in. You have to put the qualitative work in. Just because you work long hours doesn't mean you're doing anything. You have to be doing the right things. You have to attack this the right way. And so again, man, I really thank you for having me on. I'm appreciative of that, and any opportunity I get to just talk about the game I love and the game I was raised to play. And so, I look forward to us connecting again in the future. And go Birds, fly Eagles, fly, man. Follow me at Love for the Game Mal. And, I really just appreciate just every opportunity that I get.
Dude, I couldn't, honestly, you said about Gale, E-Rock, all those guys, 4th and John, Soko, Brennan, Mark, Chris, everybody,
everybody, man.
I'm sure there's Ryan, there's a million I'm missing, I'm sure. But, when I started doing this, you and I had talked about, I was on my deathbed. It was all, I wanted to find more Eagles fans that were diehards, that bled green and really, wanted to actually talk about the game and not, Le'Veon Bell, and here comes Antonio. Like every week, these bullcrap. And if it's real, let's talk about it. But some of the stuff got a little out of hand. So I went on an adventure, dude, to find real people. And of course, who do I run into first but Gale? So for the last couple of years, Gale has just been helping me. And, ever since they invited me and then asked me to start writing for them, it's been nothing but helpful and nothing but awesome. And like you said, it's a grassroots movement, man. We're trying to bring real knowledge and, actual real passion. When you cut us open, there's green that comes out. And
I bleed
people
green,
understand that, man. And it's like, oh, wow, like these guys actually know what's going on. And I'm not trying to toot our horns here, but we appreciate you guys that do tune in, because this is what I was trying to grow. That's what Fourth and John's all about. That's what I'm all about, what Mal's all about, Gail, E-Rock, all of us, dude. So we appreciate you guys being a part of this. And, you know, this, now that I got this thing going for the last couple of weeks, you know, we're going to keep trying to bring educated people on. We're going to keep bringing players and doing stuff. So appreciate you coming on in the beginning of this, man, and hope to see you throughout the middle, the end, and all the above, man. So,
and real quick,
love to everybody. Much love to you, Mal.
My bad. I just want to shout out everybody. So, you know, you have Brendan D, Brendan Walker, Ryan Neal, Braxton Drake, Howard, Mark, E-Rock, you know, Rick Kearney, Gail. And like you said about Gail, man, you know, I owe so much to Gail, because Gail is the dude that found me doing fan posts at Bleeding Green Nation and, you know, gave me the belief in myself to even get to where I am. And I give him that credit. And he's such a humble dude that he just pushes that off to the side. He don't even want to take the credit. Gail, without you, brother, I wouldn't be here, man. 100%. Like, you found me grinding it out, and nobody cared about me, right? Like, you know, and you were the person that said, Mal, you can do it. And so, you know, I appreciate everybody on this Fourth and John team. Jimmy, I appreciate you. And I just can't wait to continue to just keep taking this thing higher.
Oh, I love it, man. Couldn't have said it any better, because, Gail, my Lord, same here. I was down and out. I was, you know, almost dead. And I was just like, I can't, like, I'm trying to believe in myself. And sure enough, here comes this guy to pick me up. And, you know, along the way, I've met all the people mentioned, and everybody's been pretty great. And I fairly know some of them, so I've been a little shy to ask them to come on. But, you know, I've got the cojones to ask a couple of you guys, and it's been wonderful. So we're going to keep doing this, keep growing. And, you know, like you said, we're going to try to make this whole thing better. So love you. Thank you for coming on, brother. And, as always, everybody, stay safe, stay sane, and go Birds! Go Birds!